It all kicks off in the slaughter zone of Moa City, where a terrifying ice dragon is wrecking everything in its path with its freezing aura. In the midst of the chaos, people are running for their lives, desperately trying to escape the imminent destruction before they get crushed. The situation takes a nosedive when an army of the undead suddenly swarms the streets, and someone quickly realizes this is the work of Bai Yi, the famous player who single-handedly crossed the kingdom's border. Stunned by the insane power gap, Zikwan, the president of the Desolate Ghost Guild, wonders in disbelief if this is really the strength of the Divine Dragon Empire's top player. The city's defenses are completely shredded by the unstoppable horde, leaving everyone in a panic as they realize a single individual caused this absurd level of damage. Staring down at the chaotic scene with a menacing posture, the Necromancer is called a terrifying monster by the NPCs witnessing the siege. Gripping his deadly scythe atop his bone dragon, he orders his legion to advance without mercy and absorb even more energy from the massacre. Watching his creatures roar at the sky, our main character, or MC, reflects that this still isn't enough for what he wants to achieve in the new life, granted by the game of 10,000 worlds. Gazing at the city engulfed in blue flames, he remembers how in the past he had just one health point, and was on the brink of kicking the bucket with only a year to live. But he not only survived but also climbed to the absolute top to become even more invincible. The story then flashes back a few months, showing the modern, peaceful facilities on planet Earth, also known as Blue Star. Lying in a hospital bed covered in bandages, the young man hears unfamiliar hands shutting off his machines and recognizes a woman's voice telling him not to come after her when he's gone. Trapped in his own comatose body, Bai Yi falls into a deep despair, mentally screaming about why they're pulling the plug when he isn't even gone yet. The anguish intensifies a second later when the woman coldly states that she's his fiancée, revealing a complete betrayal of trust. Staring at the motionless patient on the gurney, she justifies her criminal act with the lame excuse that he's no different from a corpse anyway, claiming she's doing it for his own good. Isolated in his own mind, the guy finds it pathetic that the #1 player on the planet, with trillions in wealth, has been turned into a useless vegetable by a suspicious accident, unable to move a single muscle to defend himself. He refuses with every fiber of his being to accept such a humiliating end. Just then, a well-dressed man barges into the hospital room, rushing the murderer and harshly demanding why she's still hesitating at such a crucial moment. Mocking the tension in the air, Zhao Shu, a former classmate of the victim, scoffs, asking if the woman actually fell for the guy to the point she can't finish the dirty job. Hearing his ex-friend's cynical voice, the patient realizes the whole setup as Zhao Shu reminds his partner that she'll inherit billions for free as soon as he kicks the bucket, since the victim's parents are also gone. Embracing her lover moments later, the woman complains about the job and blames the man for the delay, stating that if he'd run the target over properly, they wouldn't be dealing with all this stress. The revelation makes the patient's mind explode with pure hatred for having trusted these traitors since their college days. The accomplice lets out a mocking laugh, confessing he didn't expect the young man to be tough enough to survive such a brutal car crash, but smugly assures her that no one will show up to save him today. Seething in a silent fury, the MC wishes for their demise with an overwhelming intensity. Without a shred of decency or respect for the dying, the conspirators start making out right there in the room until the woman stops them, suggesting they find another spot since getting frisky in front of a corpse is probably bad juju. Laughing maliciously at the tasteless joke, her partner promises to continue the fun and flirts with her as they walk out the door. Left behind in complete darkness, Bai Yi weeps in frustration, realizing the scumbags had been plotting this since their very first handshake, cursing the heavens for not being able to move his body to get his revenge right now. The heart monitor finally flatlines, indicating multiple organ failure, and he faces his end with extreme rage for being forced to accept a fate designed by lowlifes. With the last breath registered by the machine, the young man's consciousness begins to detach from his physical vessel, heading toward the abyss. Suddenly, the vast emptiness is shattered by luminous digital glitches tearing across the screen, accompanied by terrified screams echoing from the outside world. In the bustling city streets, pedestrians point upward in absolute panic, thinking an alien invasion has just begun as they see something bizarre ripping through the sky. A colossal portal of purple and red runes materializes between the buildings as an omnipotent voice congratulates the planet on being selected to participate in the game of 10,000 worlds. The celestial announcement relentlessly informs them that all inhabitants will start from scratch in a new life of survival, declaring that the mass transport will occur in 30 seconds, and that tutorials have already been implanted directly into everyone's brains. The crowds erupt into a collective frenzy on the avenues as they process the mysterious data in their minds, with some cheering that the rich and powerful will lose all their privileges since the new system has no pay to win shortcuts or special treatment. In the comfort of their penthouse, The two murderers read the holographic screens in despair, discovering that their stolen money is now worthless and they'll have to fight for their lives in a chaotic landscape against foreign races. Nervously taking a drag from a cigarette, Zhao Xu notes with relief that as long as you have a sliver of life, you'll be pulled into the game, wickedly hoping his ex-classmate doesn't make the cut. The relentless timer hits 0 as the traitor tries to console himself, certain that even if his rival is taken, a debilitated comatose body will be useless in combat. Hearing the audible warning rip through his mind at the edge of the abyss, the MC's eyes fly open as he instantly understands that this transmigration to another reality is the perfect blessing. With the sharp gaze of a predator given a second chance, he seizes the divine opportunity with everything he's got, promising himself to focus on revenge. A pillar of purple energy crashes through the hospital ceiling, bathing his bed as he solemnly swears that he will not go down, no matter what, and that he will not falter. The explosive energy engulfs the entire screen in a brutal flash, indicating that the force transfer process has successfully begun. Entire populations begin to vanish from the streets in fragments of light, with some crying uncontrollably, begging to return to their boring, safe daily lives. In contrast, natural-born adventurers are ecstatic, jumping for joy at the brutal promise of a fresh, action-packed start. Bai Yi materializes, fully intact, on a floating platform of ancient architecture, identified by the interface as the Descendants' Temple. Kneeling on the rocky floor to regain his senses, he runs a hand over his body, relieved to confirm it's not a dream, and that his legs are 100% perfect again. Bathed in a checking barrier of light, the system gives him an official welcome and requires him to confirm a username, all while he savors the refreshing breeze of being alive and well. Without a second thought, he sets his name as Bai Yi, immediately activating the class and talent awakening protocol. The robotic voice echoes through the hall, quickly explaining that all survivors from his planet will receive a free, innate special ability to help them face the coming threats. The introduction hologram explains that abilities range on a spectrum from trash, tier F, rank to SSS, great anomalies, and the guy mentally crosses his fingers, praying to the dice gods for a good roll. In that instant, his eyes light up with a golden glow, and a notification pings, announcing the bombshell awakening of a forbidden S-rank talent. Floating in a whirlwind of radiant energy, he reads dumbfounded the 3 busted effects of the promotion technique, which allow him to upgrade items for free, raise item tiers by paying resources, or shatter the limits of evolution at the bizarre cost of sacrificing his own lifespan. After the shock of his absurd luck wears off, the light spreads into luminous cracks on the floor, instructing him to choose his main combat class. Looking at the models of soldiers and casters, he strokes his chin, quickly weighing whether his super talent would be better suited for breaking things, with a mage's destructive spells, or a warrior's heavy weapons. Before he can make a decision, a series of error windows block his view, stating that his initial physical attributes are too crummy for almost any profession available. The system then materializes a grim, scythe-wielding figure, bluntly imposing that the only path compatible with his current physical weakness is the dreaded Necromancer class. Swallowed by the class conversion pillar moments later, he grumbles in annoyance that the machine didn't give him a single second to try and bend the selection rules. However, as he handles his new pointy, bone-adorned weapon, he smirks, realizing that, deep down, commanding the dead from a distance is an excellent strategy for someone who likes to stay safe. But that false sense of security crumbles as soon as the status screen reveals his health bar is permanently stuck at a single, miserable point, leaving the guy completely stunned by the absurdity. Boiling with indignation, a vein popping on his forehead, he yells at the panel for being cursed with only 1 year to live in a fragile body, and the certainty that any random slip-up would be an insta-kill. Quickly assessing his disastrous situation, the necromancer understands that staying like this is a death sentence and decides his only option is to bet all his chips at once in the celestial casino. With his eyes sparking with audacity, he pulls out his new passive ability and targets himself. Pointing his index finger to the ceiling, he declares the activation of the catastrophe, level maximum upgrade directly on his basic profession, burning his one and only free chance to avoid the absurd cost of 100,000 years of life demanded by the talent. The confirmation button is virtually smashed, and the success notification explodes, transforming the simple skeleton summoner into the obscure and exclusive secret class, Sovereign of Death. Levitating in a glorious divine energy, the player checks the waterfall of buffs on his screen, gaining insane passives, a huge increase in points per level, and a soul-bound legacy item, making him laugh victoriously at having outsmarted the system so early on. Holding a thick book with a skull on the cover, he sets the new toy aside for now and hurries to finish the tutorial, since he's wasted too much time in the creation room. A malicious shadow crosses his revitalized gaze as memories of the traitors Liu Rian and Zhao Xu resurface, and the sovereign vows to hunt the pair down in this new world to serve as appetizers for his zombies. The scenery disappears in a flash of teleportation light as the interface warns that dying out there will drain levels and punish him with the loss of biological years of life, except under the temporary protection of the newbie village. As his feet touch the packed dirt of the settlement, he finds the place crammed with disoriented earthlings, either begging to go home or whining for a team to carry them. Leaving the sound of losers in the background, Bai smiles as he walks down the main cobblestone street, genuinely happy to see his manga fantasies become a real, raw survival game. Ignoring the shield warriors and failed healers begging for groups at the main gate, he prefers to go test the weight of his own spells in the forest, without carrying any parasites on his back. Checking the blue panel on his way to the woods, he analyzes that his attack magic is pretty weak, only able to raise the carcass of a small, fragile skeleton from the ground. As the silhouette of the tiny blue creature forms in his mind, he agrees that the F-tier skill tree abilities are the pure essence of mediocrity at the start of the game. However, a huge wave of confidence fills the young man's face as he focuses his attention on the exclusive list of spells he received in his secret evolution bargain. Reading the A-rank lifelink indicates that his precarious 1 HP can be connected to the durability of his summoned minions, effectively eliminating the paranoia of turning to dust from a simple bump. Continuing his research, he discovers that the S-grade, amplification, causes his summons to multiply in quantity and instantly double their stats without needing prolonged training. Still a bit dizzy from the absurd descriptions, he smirks, amused by the luxury of starting the campaign, already wielding the tools of the game's highest royalty. Halting his march in a more secluded grassy area, the guy pulls out his mystical item again for a basic visual test in the daylight. The sacred book levitates on its own, emitting orange auras while the description text confirms its divine protection, ensuring the item will never be dropped or destroyed by external damage, making it the absolute pillar of his future domination. Bai calmly reads that its attributes will only activate at level 10, leaving him completely indifferent to the restriction. With his macabre book lit by a blue flame, the necromancer decides the best initial approach is to summon a skeleton to test the waters. Just then, an imposing bone warrior wreathed in mystical flames violently erupts from the ground. The MC's attention is quickly drawn when he realizes 2 of those creatures appeared at the same time. Soon after, the luminous panel pings, confirming that his catastrophe trait doubled his class's innate effects, although the system blocks other functions due to his low level. Analyzing the backs of his new summons side by side, he coldly assesses that the monsters don't seem to pack much of a physical punch despite the double advantage. At that moment, a bald guy approaches excitedly, complimenting his summoner profession and guessing his talent must be at least A rank before asking to form a party. Getting straight to the point, the Sovereign of Death rejects the offer, stating he prefers to play solo, leaving the guy speechless in the middle of the field. The man walks away annoyed, telling people to stop feigning admiration and pointing out with a sneer that the summons there couldn't even take down a chicken. Nearby, several level 0 newbies are getting pathetically beaten up while fighting giant birds in the pasture, screaming in despair over the excessive damage. As a witness to the collective shame of the player base, Bai notes just how weak his fellow humans are at the start of this new reality. A huge chicken struts around calmly, displaying its meager defense points, while some random player throws in the towel, declaring he's going to look for a peaceful, farm-focused class. A few hunters sitting on the grass notice the macabre duo passing by and quickly deduce that the guy must have awakened a high-rarity talent. They advise each other to swallow their envy and focus on their own mobs, while the MC walks past, assuring them he won't steal anyone's kills. Strolling toward the woods, he reflects internally that, possessing a power that breaks the game's rules, it would be humiliating to waste time killing small birds in the tutorial area. Entering a new territory surrounded by larger trees, the guy calmly crosses paths with some abnormally large black rabbits. The system lights up with info on the level 2 monsters, warning about the dangerous physical charge these red-eyed critters tend to make. Facing the beasts foaming with rage, he comments ironically that getting headbutted by one of those things must really hurt a fragile body. Without wasting a single second, his 2 guardians charge the pack, delivering swift, flaming strikes that chip away considerable chunks of damage. Relieved by the convenience of not getting his own clothes dirty, the player takes advantage of the empty area to summon more reinforcements and put his abilities' limit to the test. The undead troop corners the defenseless prey in a brutal sequence of coordinated attacks, slicing through its flesh without any hesitation. Red blood splatters violently through the air as the monster's body succumbs to the pressure of the heavy blades. With the victory screen displaying a hefty experience bonus, Bai assesses that his kill speed is perfect and he'll soon reach his first level up. Checking his desperate medical chart with its single point of health, he's shocked to realize the spell has directly linked his essence to the amplified vitality of his skeletons. Satisfied with the improvised shield that has made him nearly unkillable, the commander declares that 4 soldiers are enough for now, and that the hunt must go on. From that point on, he just strolls leisurely through the grass with his hands in his pockets, while his personal escort grinds up demonic felines on the front lines. A few injured explorers watch the scene from a corner, completely indignant at how easily the kid is leveling up just by taking a walk in the woods. The onlookers are stunned when they count 4 imposing skeletons at once, betting high that the guy has already topped the rankings for this specific village. A glorious waterfall of golden light bathes the young man's body in an explosion of energy, signaling the long-awaited jump to level 1. Analyzing the new pool of free points to distribute, he understands that focusing on agility is crucial to escape death, so he invests heavily in speed and spirit, which dictates the strength of his units. Brimming with confidence from his new stats, the MC decides to activate the forbidden promotion technique on his most basic summoning spell. The virtual panel floods his vision, confirming the trait's absurd success and revealing exponential improvements that pushed a ridiculously lame skill straight into God tier territory. Stunned, he reads the spell's description and understands that he can now summon combat troops for a joke of a mana cost and a near zero cooldown. With the secret additions, the package includes the indestructible life, sharing and passive multipliers that double both the stats and the maximum number of his army on the field. Understanding the colossal breach of the rules, the Necromancer deduces that sharing damage with 20 defenders completely negates the weakness of having only 1 hit point. With his unit cap pushed to the limit of 20 relentless soldiers, he abandons the useless idea of being discreet and fills the lawn with his macabre legion. Taking advantage of the overall upgrade of his spells, the guy points his sacred book to the heavens, deciding to pour the blessing of evolution onto his exclusive weapon. A wave of pure gold envelopes the artifact's thick cover, instantly promoting it to the rank of Sacred Tome of Death. Disappointed to see the paltry gain of 15 points in magic power, he sighs heavily at the long wait to unlock the bonus magic that requires level 10, but declares the true start of the slaughter routine. Extending his arm in a cold command for a general massacre, the Lord orders his cavalry to advance across the map, stating that the more trouble that shows up, the better. A beastly half-wolf creature leaps from the foliage, growling fiercely at the metallic invaders who have stepped into its hunting grounds. Wielding an aura of lost souls condensed into blue fire, the player continues to summon new units at an industrial pace. Unstoppable, the guy laughs uncontrollably at the divine balancing oversight that nullified his casting time, allowing him to materialize warriors like a continuous factory. The army crushes the level 3 feline demon in a storm of blind blows, absorbing rivers of experience from the creature decimated in the mud. In less than half an hour of covering the plains, Bai burns with power as he hits the level 2 barrier, ecstatic with the surreal speed of progress his cheat has granted him. Without showing any sign of fatigue on his walk, the sovereign raises a hand, signaling to his phalanx of bones that the carnage needs to continue at an accelerated pace. The march is abruptly halted when a red and black cyclone forms, blocking their path and revealing the entrance portal to the map's first forest instance. Reading the warning that the Misty Woods hide high-value rewards, he confirms his entry without hesitation, fired up by the disproportionate strength of his army. The server spits out blood-red warning screens, asking if the adventurer really intends to dive into the darkness alone and offering 4 levels of torture, culminating in the extreme nightmare. Fueled by a sharp arrogance bordering on madness, the guy advances toward the vortex and directly selects the hell difficulty. As soon as the absurd option is locked on the left panel, the dimensional portal transforms into an oppressive spiral of pure scarlet magic, stamping his passport to the slaughter. The green scenery is instantly replaced by a nightmare of dead trees and a deadly atmosphere as the Legion breaks through the entry veil. Trying to clear his vision, which is hampered by the environment, the leader notes with disgust that the acidic fog is too dense to see a foothead on the path. Maintaining tactical calm, he falls back a position and delegates the danger to his glowing underlings, ordering them incisively to tear through the fog and find the hidden monsters. Posed like someone controlling the chessboard, he reflects with relief that he has absolute command of his warriors within a 100-meter radius, otherwise, he'd easily lose his infantry in this darkness. The dungeon floor trembles hostilely as a colossal monster tree emerges from the mists, displaying its elite title focused on brutal ambushes. Faced with the armored target rising from the dark ground, the MC cracks a cold smile, celebrating that they've finally come face to face with a respectable enemy. The area of effect extermination command is fired to destroy the plant monster, but the creature quickly counters by casting a strong magic root spell. One of the frontline skeletons is engulfed by thick, vibrant wooden vines, becoming immobilized and at the mercy of the tightening roots on its armor. Sizing up the overwhelming stats of the monster rooted in the terrain, The necromancer acknowledges the opponent's high damage but bellows at the top of his lungs that his numerical advantage is supreme, and orders all damage to be focused on a blind spot. After felling the giant tree and generating an obscene amount of experience, Bai Yi excitedly concludes that facing elite enemies on a level 8 floor yields brutal rewards. In a completely stealthy and swift manner, the scarlet eyes of a colossal boa constrictor cut through the dark fog, searching for the unsuspecting invader's back. Reacting in a deadly split second, the player escapes being crushed by the heavy tail, counter-attacking in kind with a concentrated sphere of flames shot from his hand. Floating in the air from the force of his evasive maneuver, he ridicules the snake's ambush attempt and loudly guarantees he'll turn the beast's hide into barbecue. The explosion of mystical energy carbonizes the level 8 serpent's thick scales, draining massive amounts of health in mere moments with intensified burn effects. Seizing the opening in its defense, the entire bony pack leaps onto the slithering creature, delivering lethal blows to its neck before it can retaliate with venom. The mist tree bow crashes, torn to pieces, onto the damp earth, yielding an absurd bonus due to the massive power gap between the killer and the slain monster. With his feet firmly on the ground after the agile maneuver, the Sovereign realizes his agility and spirit stats still don't compensate for the fact that his summons hit infinitely harder than he does. The screen glows with the spoils of victory, displaying the model of a rustic belt dropping from the rotten carcass onto the packed dirt. Examining the physical defense, focused belt in his hand, he figures the item doesn't fit the priorities of his fragile class, but decides to store the piece in his inventory to sell in the city later. Satiated by the appetizer in the gloomy entrance, he pushes his flaming group into the thicker depths of the forest with a sharp and excited command. The luminous soldiers begin to devour the darkness, sweeping away all corrupted life that the nightly ambushes throw at their narrow battle line. In an imperative gesture, the commander points to the center of the rearguard, announcing that the real harvest of insane experience has truly begun in this gloom. The beasts of the Hell Instance are relentlessly ground down by the Infinite Platoon, which slice through the map's roots and scales, as if they were nothing more than inanimate targets. A massive beam of light explodes from the MC's soul, washing away the forest's darkness and signaling that all the combined rewards have catapulted his power straight to the coveted level 5. Continuing the frantic hunt, Bai Yi points forward and orders his boys to advance without mercy. Just then, the colossal serpent fiercely attacks the front line, trying to crush the bone invaders. Surprised by the brutality of the impact, the necromancer realizes the creature took out one of his soldiers in a single blow and admits that its attack power is truly frightening. However, he maintains his unshakable confidence, guaranteeing that all that strength won't be enough to withstand his tactic of flooding the field with skeletons. Pointing his macabre staff, the MC commands his troops to slice the beast with all possible brutality. The undead army massacres the venomous serpent repeatedly, yielding a huge amount of bonus experience due to the level difference pointed out by the system. Satisfied with the initial result, the guy announces that the 2 guards have been eliminated and tells his cavalry to focus all damage directly on the map's boss. Suffering from the rain of merciless blows, the gigantic scarlet snake roars in pain as flames erupt on its scales. Looking at his own hand ironically, the leader wonders if his personal damage isn't a bit embarrassing compared to the havoc his summons are causing. Taking advantage of the enemy's distraction, the swarm of swords and axes continues to slice the body of the slithering beast as it thrashes wildly on the battlefield. With the violent impact of its colossal body slamming the ground, several skeletal soldiers are flung far away. Without showing any concern, the Sovereign notes that the beast is devouring his units one by one, but he simply summons new reinforcements at the same speed. Desperate to survive, the boss launches a massive attack on the ground, shattering several skeletons to pieces with the force of the blast. Analyzing the enemy's change in posture, Bai Yi quickly deduces that the creature is preparing to launch its special move. Moments later, the serpent throws its jaws wide open and begins to concentrate a colossal sphere of green, poisonous energy. Noticing the spell's trajectory, the MC praises the beast's intelligence for focusing the attack directly on him and ignoring the troops. The toxic blast hits him head-on, but he just smirks, explaining that with his life sharing, his health pool exceeds 100,000 points, and such a pathetic amount of damage would never hurt him. Without missing a beat in the face of the poison gas, the guy laughs loudly and fires a concentrated blue energy blast, telling the creature to just die already. The spell hits the target explosively as the skeletons continue to tear at the beast's neck. Completely destroyed, the serpent collapses lifelessly on the damp earth, yielding an absurd amount of points for being a silver-grade boss. Celebrating the quick victory, the necromancer raises a fist in satisfaction as he receives the luminous notification that he's scored the server's first solo kill. Bathed in the remnants of the greenish smoke, he reaffirms his unshakable sovereignty, making it clear that this level of threat would never even tickle his colossal vitality. Far away, in the main square of the newbie village, the server issues a global announcement congratulating the player White Knight for the unprecedented achievement and encouraging others to follow his example. The crowd is in absolute shock as they read the Sky panel, with many survivors wondering what kind of bizarre talent this guy awakened to take down a monster of that caliber all by himself. In the initial hunting grounds, a warrior is getting wrecked by a giant bird and complains in frustration about the game's lack of balance, outraged that he's fighting for his life against a weak mob while someone else is humiliating bosses. In another part of the forest, an explorer laments not knowing that solo kills earned worldwide announcements, saying he would have let his partner handle their target alone if he'd known. Showcasing all his physical agility, the swordsman named Maple Leaf lands a heavy slash on a demon wolf, dealing massive, critical damage. Returning to the group moments later, the warrior frankly admits that this White Knight guy is way stronger than him right now, as he wouldn't stand a chance against a silver, grade enemy. Analyzing the situation coolly, the woman known as Wealthy World points out that her ally has an S-rank talent, concluding that the mysterious solo player must have at least an SS-level ability to surpass him by such a wide margin. The big guy in green armor is astonished by the possibility of such a broken power existing so early in the game, while the short mage suggests they try to recruit the prodigy. Oozing charm and arrogance, the leader agrees with the suggestion, guaranteeing that to this day, no man has ever been able to refuse a personal invitation from her. Meanwhile, Baiyi's interface is bombarded by an uninterrupted avalanche of blue notifications, flooding his vision with dozens of simultaneous friend requests. Not understanding the reason for the desperate attention, he sighs impatiently and decides to reject all requests at once, claiming he has no time to waste on it. Focusing on what really matters, the necromancer examines the magical purple fragments he obtained, surprised to read in the description that the life soul stones increase biological longevity. A wide grin spreads across his face as he confirms the item's valuable utility, deciding to use his promotion ability on those stones immediately before anything else. The system glows gold, announcing the successful upgrade, transforming the basic loot into an intermediate version that grants whole months of extra life, with a negligible penalty in case of death. Radiant with the absurd gain, the guy laughs to himself with open arms, confessing that this feeling of getting free resources is totally addictive, and that he urgently needs to hunt for more of those stones. Rummaging through the rest of the boss loot, he discards 2 spellbooks that are useless for his class and begins to evaluate the equipment stored in his inventory. Holding up a modest ring with an emerald gem, the MC concludes that only this accessory will be useful for now and activates his evolution magic on the object. The equipment ascends to gold rarity, and he puts on the shining jewel, satisfied to see that the poison damage attribute will compensate for his lack of raw magic attack. Assessing his current troops with a more critical eye, the Sovereign reflects that many of his bone guardians were easily crushed by the serpent, proving their basic stats aren't strong enough. Determined to solve his defensive frontline problem, the player opens the luminous screen and selects his main summoning technique for a new cycle of sublimation. The artificial intelligence demands the exorbitant cost of 5 gold coins for the advanced process, making the guy break out in a cold sweat at the extortionate price, but he confirms the transaction, justifying that money can be recovered through fighting. The panel explodes with information, announcing that the spell has evolved drastically and displaying silhouettes of sturdy warriors and archers, which gets the leader excited for having made a perfect investment. Eager to test his new destructive force, Baiyi extends his hands, wreathed in a spiritual glow, and calls the new units to the battlefield. Staring at the menacing posture of his new minions equipped with heavy armor, the commander praises the robust attributes of the evolution and orders them to resume exploring the area in search of prey. The macabre infantry advances relentlessly through the dead vegetation, wielding drawn bows and long blades as they head into the depths of the Misty dungeon. The squad stumbles upon a camp of elite goblins yelling aggressively, and the necromancer immediately orders his long-range units to concentrate fire on one target at a time. Ripping through the wind with a deadly hum, a spiritual arrow hits the green monster's eye with surgical precision before it can throw its weapon. After the annihilation yields another batch of points on the screen, the guy runs through the forest, noticing his body speed has increased considerably, which makes him decide he needs to switch to a higher-level map to farm. Back on the cobblestone streets of the newbie village, various warriors are shouting, forming small exploration groups in search of healers and strong defenders. Grabbing everyone's attention in the square, some random guy announces the creation of the Hegemony Guild to the world, but is immediately shot down by a suspicious adventurer who questions why anyone would work for him. With a wide, superior smile, the organizer shares his talent, which grants absurd benefits of extra experience and attack power to any member who joins his team. The general attitude shifts instantly, and the crowd erupts in complete euphoria, with dozens of guys humiliating themselves and begging for a spot. The popular uproar is abruptly cut short when the entire server pings, locking the residents' vision with a special notification pinned up high. The luminous panel displays a direct message from Wealthy World, publicly begging the player White Knight to accept her friend request so they can discuss something of interest to him. The survivors are dumbfounded to realize the message cost 10 solid gold coins from the system, speculating aloud where that woman got such a fortune so quickly. Walking calmly along the path, Bai Yi considers the move and is impressed by the girl's boldness in burning a boatload of cash just to send a signal, accepting the request out of curiosity. The private interface opens instantly, with the leader offering to bankroll all his equipment plus a staggering advance of 100 coins if they team up, leaving the MC shocked by the surreal proposal. Focused on not being easily fooled, he types his response incisively, questioning the source of this endless fortune, and demanding to know why he should trust such an absurd promise. To prove her intentions without mincing words, the woman shares her own confidential character sheet, revealing she possesses the extremely rare SSS grade class called God of Wealth. Reading the unbelievable effects that allow her to harvest fortunes from a magic tree daily and drastically increase loot drops, the necromancer is perplexed by a talent that so blatantly defies the game's laws. Pondering the situation cautiously, he acknowledges that the girl generates colossal profits just by existing, but points out that joining other people would immediately expose his true strength. Putting his safety first, the MC politely refuses the offer, explaining that he prefers to level up alone in this initial phase of the apocalypse. Following the refusal on the holographic screen, the rich woman narrows her eyes in total frustration, visibly offended that he had the nerve to reject her perfect invitation. Upon hearing the stranger's negative response, the team's shield bearer points his spear forward and says they should just forget the guy and continue hunting monsters on their own. The leader argues, dissatisfied, that without good artifacts, their progress will continue to drag, but she cuts her thought short upon receiving another message notification. The glowing panel shows Bai Yi asking if the team is interested in buying the old equipment he doesn't use, making the woman's face light up with pure joy. Flaunting her infinite purchasing power, Wealthy World quickly announces she'll take the entire lot, no matter the cost, promising to wait for him to finish his hunt to close the lucrative deal. Turning her focus back to her most powerful ally, she excitedly promises that Maple Leaf will have the best armaments soon, which will make their kill speed skyrocket. The commercial excitement is violently cut short when a demonic boar armed with a heavy club appears roaring in the arena, activating the red alert for a bronze-grade boss. Analyzing the sudden threat, the captain asks if the swordsman trusts his agility enough to take down the stone giant alone, receiving a sharp and unhesitating confirmation from his colleague. Immediately, the strategist orders everyone to hand over their health potions to the warrior, making it clear that no one should interfere in the fight to ensure they get the exclusive solo kill rewards. With the tactic decided in a flash, she gives the order to advance while the supports fall back to watch the confrontation, maintaining a completely safe distance from the monster's heavy paws. Dashing across the uneven terrain, Maple Leaf wields his blade, which is enveloped in an intense tempestuous magic, diving into direct combat against the brutal beast. The demon pig brings its club down with brutal violence, forcing the swordsman to dodge the impact that shatters the dirt ground. Soon, the monster roars furiously as Maple Leaf uses his blade, wreathed in tempestuous magic, to defend against the heavy charge. With the clash of forces, the warrior is pushed back, sliding across the dirty arena. Calmly analyzing the beast, he concludes that the enemy hits hard, but is too slow to pose a real threat. Watching the fight from afar, Wealthy World has complete faith in her partner's victory, certain that his combat experience is more than enough to solo the boss without a headache. Far away, the Sovereign of Death reaches level 6 and celebrates how easy it is to traverse the Mistwood Forest just by strolling behind his infantry. However, he casually admits that constantly bending down to pick up all the loot dropped on the map is starting to get tiring. Evaluating a newly acquired mist cloak, the guy finds the piece useless and ugly, since the cloak's aggro reduction effect is pointless when he has a wall of undead in front of him. But his mood improves upon examining a gold-grade leader's emblem, praising the shiny accessory's excellent magic attributes. Without hesitation, he equips the jewel on his chest, ready to continue the hunt. Suddenly, the necromancer sees one of his skeletons running back with its health melting in the blink of an eye, and is left wondering what kind of monster could cause so much damage so quickly. Just then, a thunderous voice echoes through the dead trees, cursing the Bone Troop and demanding to know how they dare step into the king's territory. The system flashes red, announcing that the dungeon has been sealed due to a secret quest, leaving the player shocked to have triggered a hidden event just by walking around with his summons. Regaining his composure, the MC enters combat mode, stating that he's quite curious to see the face of the person making all this fuss. The Goblin King leaps from the shadows, smashing the ground with a colossal hammer blow, furiously yelling about the invasion of his personal domain. Baring his sharp teeth, the crazed monster threatens to turn the entire skeletal troop into dust. Inspecting the enemy's status screen, Bai notes that the challenge of chipping away more than 300,000 of the gold grade boss's health points in just 2 minutes will be quite tough. However, his unshakable confidence wins out, and he assures the king that his thick vitality will be useless against his infinite army, ordering an immediate massacre. The macabre infantry swarms the green giant from all sides, slicing its tough flesh and chipping away multiple damage numbers at once. Annoyed by the ambush in his own territory, the enemy leader emanates a murderous aura and insults the rotting creatures, claiming the mere smell of the undead race makes him want to puke. Observing the damage caused by the opponent's counter-attack, the guy seriously admits that the damage is absurd and would instantly wipe out any level 5 player. Summoning blue magic circles around his body, he ironically laments the beast's bad luck for crossing his deadly path. A concentrated beam of energy hits the monster square in the face, forcing it to grumble about the human ant trying to sneak attack him. Seizing the window of opportunity, the bone archers land precise arrows in the boss's carcass, draining considerable chunks of its raw health. The giant counters the pressure by swinging its fire-wreathed hammer, scoffing that a simple focused attack from weaklings could never shatter him. Raising his free hand to the heavens, the Goblin King channels a scarlet energy, calling upon the warriors of his race to crush the invaders. A gigantic horde of green, bloodthirsty monsters materializes in the arena around their leader, snorting and eager for carnage. The necromancer breaks into a cold sweat at the sight of the sudden battalion, completely caught off guard by the fact that the boss also masters the art of mass summoning and realizing he's been surrounded. Flaunting his numerical superiority, the colossal creature announces that he had purposely hidden his clan members in the forest, as his minions run over the defensive line. With his eyes bloodshot with pure hatred and madness, the king completely loses it and screams in desperation, questioning why the outsider won't just give up on bothering him. Ignoring his own fury, the giant beast executes a violent heroic leap and orders his soldiers to crush the human target. The colossal impact of the hammer hits the ground right where the player was standing, creating a destructive crater of cracks and dust. Sliding across the packed earth to escape the shockwave, the MC confesses that the tremor hurt, but eases the tension by confirming the damage was absorbed and divided among his troops. Focused on turning the tables without losing momentum, he reactivates the summoning marks of his secret class. Bringing in new reinforcements from the light to patch up the defensive gaps, the Sovereign of Death abruptly changes tactics, announcing that the priority is to shred the minion monsters first. Immediately, the undead barrier locks claws with the green horde, slicing through the smaller enemies in the blink of an eye. Maintaining his general's march, the guy extends his free hand and demands that his archers unload their arrows directly into the giant's chest. The storm of spiritual shots pierces the king's hide, making him roar in pain as he tries to hold back the relentless advance of blades. Cornered by the constant piercings, the monster's eyes widen as he refuses to accept that he's going to fall to an army of the dead. Burning the last shreds of his sanity, the creature enters a berserk rage, shattering its attack limit and roaring to the heavens that he will never again be demoted to someone's lackey. Channeling the condensed magic in his hands, Bai tells the beast to shut up and stop with the idiotic speeches as a global notification echoes across the server. The luminous announcement confirms that Wealthy World's guild scored the kill on the bronze-grade monster, making the guy bite his lips slightly for having his solo first boss kill achievement stolen. Swallowing his bruised ego without faltering, he hurls the magic sphere, justifying that he can't lose sight of the gold-grade prize over some tiny spoils. The merciless bombardment of blades, arrows, and flames blasts through the goblin army's final resistance, draining the giant's health bar in a cascade of brutal blows. Completely obliterated by the crushing pressure, the king collapses lifelessly, raising a cloud of dust and leaving his old crown to roll across the battlefield floor. The sound panel floods the MC's vision, crowning his solo elimination of the gold-grade monster, pushing his level to number 7, and delivering hefty extra bonuses of vitality stones. However, his victorious expression quickly cools when he notices not a single piece of equipment dropped on the dirt floor. Walking cautiously toward the slain giant, the guy theorizes that the dry corpse must be part of the sealed dungeon's locked secrets. Far away, the beefy leader of the rival guild laughs, celebrating the acquisition of a super rare survival resource, while his men inflate his ego, assuring him he's far more competent than some random solo player. In the same forest, Wealthy World's group showers Maple Leaf with praise, guaranteeing that the blonde sword is invincible and betting he could destroy any gold-grade boss in the game too. The chatter from both groups is brutally silenced by the server's chime, congratulating White Knight for soloing a gold-grade monster, installing a silent panic among the veterans. Breaking into a cold sweat at the thunderous news, the big guy swallows hard, trying to imagine what kind of sick, absolute power this guy wields. Focusing on their captain's alert screen, the mercenary guild is stunned by the feat, recognizing in shock that the lone wolf's power disparity is terrifying. Placing his hands on his hips without losing composure, Maple Leaf reassures his boss, telling her the apocalypse is just beginning and that time is on their side to turn the tables. Resting his blade imposingly, the warrior decides the field warm up is over and points toward the darkness of the first dungeon. Back in the corrupted lands of the king, Bai Yi reads the confirmation of the secret event being triggered, elevating the area's difficulty to the disaster nightmare category. Just as the green corpse releases a strange mist, the creature's spiritual essence ignites a phantom fire across its limp body, immediately drawing the player's attention to the phenomenon. Watching the mist rise uncontrollably toward the dry treetops, the necromancer goes on full alert, completely lost as to the effects of this witchcraft. Disconnected images projected into the air show the past of a fragile young goblin being torn apart by dead soldiers, clarifying for the MC the forgotten roots of this dimensional madness. As he witnesses the aura rise and darken the trees, he pieces together the puzzle, realizing that the king's traumatized soul harbors an unbreakable, ancient grudge against dark casters. Observing the crushing flow suddenly condense, the MC furrows his brow, confused, trying to predict where the next attack will come from. A colossal explosion of blue lightning fuses the enraged spirit back into the body, resurrecting the creature as a titanic skeleton, king with 1,000,000 health points. Analyzing his bone hands forged in darkness, the black gold monster bitterly laments that, in the end, he never managed to escape the plague of becoming an obedient undead. Exploding with raw power under his old crown, the cadaverous lord pulls a colossal sword from the void and roars, summoning his fallen soldiers for one final revenge. The gigantic weapon emanates devastating dark flames, threatening to reap the soul of anyone who stands between the beast and the caster. Draining of color in the face of the power chasm, the Sovereign of Death thinks the system has completely lost it for vomiting up a monster of this caliber in the game's newbie yard. The colossal villain raises his stormy blade to the heavens, drawing streams of heavy blue lightning directly to its iron tip. Ironically, the monster's corrupted area of effect passive hits the guy's allied army, instantly pushing the summon's basic attributes to the limits of level 10 in the blink of an eye. Shocked by the instant gain in raw combat power, he acknowledges that his troops have become gigantic but instinctively retreats upon hearing the enemy leader roar for everything to turn to dust. A crooked, nervous smile rips across the human's lips, as the stats make it clear that the creature's base damage is a complete exaggeration, and a head-on clash would be suicide. To make matters worse, the mechanical voice cancels the village's death protection due to the difficulty, making the necromancer grip his staff in anguish. Certain that dying now would wipe out all the extra life he'd gained from protection items. Mercilessly slicing through the dark sky, the gigantic blade strikes the map's floor, causing a horrifying, thunderous gash that inflicts over 10,000 points of damage on his entire defensive escort. The explosive shockwave hurls the MC backward with brute force, forcing him to curse the divine brutality as he tumbles through the dry brush. Digging his feet into the mud to stop his fall, he turns his head and points his extended fingers in a rage, dispatching his entire allied attack force to mercilessly blast the threat. Flanked by the glowing bows of his last living defenders, Bai Yi realizes with terror that all the mana he drained into 20 perfect soldiers won't even tickle the massive bone armor of the demon before him. With no way out in the middle of the corrupted dungeon, the necromancer decides to risk it all, stating incisively that he's going to swallow the soul stones, in one go to see how much lifespan the class promotion will drain. The system confirms the massive absorption instantly, warning that the guy has less than 5 years of life left in stock. Just then, a luminous panel opens, demanding he immediately choose an evolutionary branch for his base summons, focusing on warriors, mages, or archers. Costing exactly 5 years of existence, the ability upgrades to C grade and receives obscene bonuses that skyrocket the undead's defense and health by 500%. Reading the modified attributes, the MC is stunned, questioning if it's even acceptable to wield a power gain of this magnitude. On the other side of the dust, the colossal cadaverous lord points a hand and laughs, drowned in pure arrogance, ordering the human ant to fight him head-on. The giant's dark smile vanishes when the new summons perfectly block the violent clash, flawlessly tanking the thunderous damage as their leader orders them to hold the bone wall firm. The defensive line grows rapidly, with the shield bearers taking all the brutal impacts without retreating a single centimeter. Seeing that his suicidal tactic has turned the tide, the Sovereign of Death bursts into laughter, pulling more and more minions from the darkness and celebrating that there's no limit to his meat shield. Consumed by pure fury at being blocked, the beast explodes its thunderous aura, sacrificing defense for maximum destructive force and roaring to the four corners of the earth that he is the one and only skeleton king there. Focused on the opponent's status screen, Bai Yi notes the absurd decline in armor and acidly points out that this uncontrolled explosion will only get him killed faster. Seizing the exposed weakness, the guy orders his infantry to unload their entire remaining arsenal in one final, deadly round. An avalanche of concentrated magic riddles the gigantic boss's carcass, sinking the beast's health points in an uninterrupted bombardment. Completely obliterated by the crushing pressure, the villain collapses to his knees, grumbling indignantly that he would never accept being defeated like this. The giant's body loses its crown for good and falls face first into the dirt, triggering a thunderous server announcement that marks the kill and dumps an impressive 270,000 experience points all at once. Shocked by the avalanche of resources, the player excitedly calculates that this mountain of points will launch him straight to level 9 in the blink of an eye. Smiling confidently after clearing the first hellish area, the necromancer affirms to himself that the cataclysm promotions are invincible as long as he has lifespan to burn at will. The calm is soon shattered when an alert flashes, informing him of the zone's completion in the Hell category, leaving the guy completely confused by the notification, since the map had displayed disaster difficulty just minutes ago. Far from the corrupted areas, the sunny entrance to the Mistwood Forest continues to be a stage for mercenaries recruiting helpers for the dungeon. The captain of the Hegemony Guild welcomes newbies with a warm smile, swearing they will all become strong under his team's golden banner. The lively conversation in the square dies instantly when the crowd notices the unusual arrival of Wealthy World's Guild, flaunting complete and flashy equipment at such an early stage. Strutting like she owns the place, the leader completely ignores the whispering onlookers trying to calculate how many rivers of gold were burned on those rare level 5 armors. Taking advantage of the big shot's passage, the armored brute approaches, oozing fake sympathy to praise how the woman's fame as an investor already dominates the entire region. Not wanting to waste the trip, he suggests a small, friendly bet on who will get the first completion reward from the woods without dying in the attempt. Not backing down from the confrontation, the captain demands to know what's at stake if both sides accept the unusual challenge. Revealing the true intention behind his smug smile, the guy imposes that, in case of defeat, the woman must join his guild, claiming her infinite money would make an unbeatable duo with the crushing force of the local mercenaries. The rich woman immediately counters, asking what her payment will be if her team reaches the end of the dungeon first. Focused on closing the trap without hesitation, the big guy swears his team will offer all their combat strength to do whatever she wants. With a sharp expression and exuding sovereignty, Wealthy World raises a hand and points out that the price for losing a bet against her is exactly 3 absolute and unquestionable favors. The leader approves the conditions immediately, laughing as if he already has a crushing victory tucked in his left pocket. But the glowing panel suddenly flashes across everyone's vision, congratulating the player White Knight for the first conquest of the forest on Hell mode, completely solo. The mercenary's eyes nearly pop out of his head with rage for being upped so quickly, grumbling that this nobody is making a clown out of him. Swallowing the bitter defeat of not even taking on extreme mode, he orders his troops to enter on hard difficulty to pick up the scraps. The humiliation shatters all limits when a second worldwide announcement explodes in the square, crowning White Knight as the great loner who finished the terrifying disaster difficulty. In disbelief at such insanity, the big guy freezes on the spot, shocked to realize the lone wolf just scored 2 impossible kills at once. Watching the commotion melt away in the square, the captain's assistant tries to hurry the team along to avoid delays but receives a direct order from the leader to just wait without any rush. Pulling crucial information from the distant past, Maple Leaf mentally relives the brutality of a confrontation he once had with this same cursed, green, stone giant pig. In his own projected memory, he parries a crushing attack using only the brute force of his sword, struggling not to be trampled into the mud. Dispelling the harsh image from his mind, the swordsman curses this White Knight's divine talent and frustratedly admits that he got his butt kicked by the goblin leader back then and couldn't even take him down for good. Sharing the tense mood with her partner, Wealthy World ponders suspiciously that this mysterious identity doesn't sound entirely unfamiliar to her. In a joking tone, Maple Leaf teases his boss, suggesting the powerful guy must have been just another one of the boys who courted her in their past life. Losing her patience with the jabs, she scolds her ally, asking if he wants to be abandoned again. She hugs her colleague's left arm, assuring him he shouldn't hold grudges about the good old days of glory alongside their famous master, enigmatically suggesting the stranger reminds her of someone very important. Suddenly, the captain's astute mind clicks as she connects the dots, realizing that exact name was used daily in games years ago by her old acquaintance. Firmly pronouncing the real name Sumu Bai, she throws the identity out there, leaving the warrior beside her completely shocked. Rejecting the crazy theory with a nervous voice, the swordsman grimly attests that he himself pulled the man's life support cables, and that hundreds of players could have adopted that name out of sheer, cheap coincidence. Quickly changing the subject to avoid fraying his nerves, the guy assures her that if it really is his reincarnation, they're in luck, playing along with her old friend's light-hearted banter. She tells him to use his charms on the mysterious guy to recruit him, which earns a look of disgust and repulsion from the warrior. Flaunting her undeniable charm, Wealthy World dismisses the doubts, tossing her reddish hair aside and declaring that his real identity matters little if he falls into her network of contacts. In the deep isolation of the completed dungeon, Bai Yi receives the exclusive rewards for his 2 simultaneous victories at the limit of difficulty. Laughing out loud as he reads the overwhelming bonus, he notes that the disaster-level rewards will yield a virtually infinite blood bank with a single drop of effort. Eager to see the brutal profit from his dark journey, he opens his personal inventory directly, skipping the excess of menace and technical warnings. The profane manual reveals a sinister ability named Death Siphon, depicting the chaotic flow of sucking the raw energy of the deceased into his own soul. Quick calculations fill Bai Yi's vision, demonstrating the immediate recovery of his summoning magic power with minimal waiting time on the ability, which is based on fresh corpses. Happy with the news, he notes that his mana scarcity has completely evaporated. Without a second thought, he informs the system that he accepts the immediate promotion of the talent, so as not to delay his firepower in long battles. With the profane claws of suction successfully unleashed in his mud-caked hands, he turns his attention back to the remains of the colossal monster in the arena. The magic strikes the colossal bones, mercilessly draining 320 heavy points of spiritual energy, ripping away the last bit of cadaverous essence left on the map. Confused by the horse-sized influx to his personal bar, the MC tries to find a logical reason for it, and guesses it might be the enemy's pure affinity for having been born undead in the first place. Wiping the impurities of dust away with an assessing gaze, the Sovereign of Death finds a superior tunic of fabric raised to an epic level that will surely make the server drool with envy, but he soon scoffs, noting the cursed, costly restrictions an appraisal will slap on the treasure. Watching his minions fill their pockets with shiny trinkets, he vows to wrap up the whole mountain of loot with a nice bow to throw on the gold, stuffed back of his partner Guild from the last event. But as his eyes fall again on the dirt-stained horizon of the abandoned plain, his entire vision suddenly loses all meaning. A veritable, resplendent flood of heavy black gold ores overflows in the blink of an eye, uncontrollably tossing divine rings, fat silver coins, and rare diamonds at his legs. As if the rain of insane items wasn't enough to cause delirium, dozens of precious scrolls for the basic classes rain down, completing the $1,000,000 pile and making him wonder in fright if he just stripped the entire vital catalog of spells from the deceased lord all at once. Plucking the loose archer, warrior, and skeleton mage skills from the shower of abundant knowledge, an alert flashes, asking if he's willing to toss everything into a magic cauldron to obtain the coveted champion skeleton. Shocked by this rule breaking, the guy stammers in disbelief at the possibility of creating a fusion of 3 scrolls of this level without paying the game's taxes. Injecting everything into his essence in a continuous snap, the old, withered abilities are consumed in a golden flash, leaving the necromancer super satisfied and focused on evolving his prowess once more. The system blocks the guy, rubbing it in his face that ascending to the level of legends will reap a ridiculous 1,000 full years of his lifespan at once. Requirement: he clicks the green button for without breaking a sweat. Unconcerned about the long life of his storage, with his advanced skeletal army safely stored in the darkness under his general's command, Bai Yi picks up a translucent, planet-shaped jewel from the pile and hisses quietly, complaining about how the silly relic consumes an insane amount of energy just by being held between his fingertips. Time freezes as the globe expands, revealing an epic artifact tied to the ancient forest fairy, leaving the curious player tempted to use his busted Cataclysm promotion finger on that little glass ball too. With his open hands firing the energy anomaly directly into the pulsing heart of the unknown core, the adventurer screams at the top of his lungs, telling it to rank up without any mercy for the ancient essence. A deafening roar shatters the corrupted dungeon's atmosphere, releasing the monstrous jaw of a titanic dragon from the shadows and automatically accepting the mortal challenge of the highest grade quest that exists under the virtual heavens. Analyzing the dozens of mysterious traits overflowing from the relic, now reborn at an untouchable legendary level, the guy lets out a sadistic little laugh, admitting to himself that this stolen arcane force goes beyond the limits of the local balance's sanity. Staring at the resplendent sphere emitting a constant starlight as it slowly calms the mood around him, the owner of the fortune remarks in wonder that all the effort spent on the ghostly tree trunk yielded miracles beyond what was predictable in the crazy hunt of the last insane minutes. with his back to the phantom wind, letting the uninhabitable lair of the sealed dungeon disappear in his calculated steps into nothingness. The player calmly murmurs that the ideal moment has come to get his heavy hands on the hefty coffers of the richest woman in the entire beginner's plane. In the comfort of distant safety on the game's preserved green fields, far from the eyes of death, the luxury subordinates eagerly ask when the march will continue. But their boss crosses her arms and tells them to calm their anxiety a bit. The shiver of magical teleportation jolts the nerves of the paralyzed battalion as the masked man majestically and solitarily emerges from the dense darkness of the floating gate onto the plain. Bringing his peaceful stroll around the abandoned portals to a screeching halt, he spots a considerable audience silently watching his actions and wonders aloud if the NPCs came to ambush him or to idolize him. Wealthy World intercepts the stranger immediately, demanding the shipment from his hidden hunts in the terrifying dungeon, and asking without ceremony if it's better to take the walking treasure chest to a less populated hideout. Ignoring the cheap etiquette of traditional business, Bai dismisses the mystery, cutting the boring chat short and demanding to unload the other people's junk, right there, on the exposed dirt of the slope. A colossal avalanche mercilessly crashes down in the middle of the sunny clearing, unloading hundreds of sharp kilograms of equipment, dropped by the undead onto the dirty ground, shockingly frightening the minions huddled around to sneak peeks at the newly arrived masked monster. The astonishing reaction is plastered on the face of every mercenary on the lawn as they assess the overwhelming disaster difficulty grade of the old junk, with the battalion itself admitting in fear before everyone that the raw power of this reclusive necromancer sweeps away all logic for newbies. Pointing to the blunted swords and cracked goblin pauldrons in the giant pile, he bluntly asks if the Lady's Infinite Trust Fund can handle this brutal bill, getting a cynical reply from Wealthy World that her private coffers don't suffer from empty anxiety over the small handouts from other hunters in the most distant villages. To test the pride of her wallet in front of the wide-eyed battalion, the bone minions of death transport more massive lots of full armor sets from the dark depths to crush the leftovers and increase the indecent volume freely thrown at the feet of the bourgeois. Observing the extremely rare skill books for the main classes, and even refined axes scattered crudely on top of the pile, a guard tries to pipe up about the insane prices, but his boss crushes him without a second thought, dictatorially telling Bai to shout his price and demand the total for the package at once, without any dragged-out negotiation on the sidewalk outside the Mistwood Forest exit. To seal the insane financial superiority of her golden talent, the girl tosses the swinging bag of pure cash through the air, right into the open fingers of the dungeon vendor. Firmly gripping the heavy sack of coins, Bai assesses the amount in his hands. Wealthy World approaches, demanding that the guy finally pull the real treasures from his bag, since the mountain on the ground is just the scraps from the bottom of the barrel. Without ceremony, the necromancer throws a new shower of epic equipment and advanced skill manuals onto the dirt, leaving the rich woman's subordinates completely jaw-dropped. He notes aloud that the girl's current cash won't cover the heavy bill, but she quickly suggests they sign a formal system contract to ensure she'll pay the difference the next day. No tricks. The leader dictates that the rest of the junk can be negotiated later, guaranteeing an impressive 500 gold coins, just for the coveted focused magic book. The mystical relic floats, illuminating the area and leaving the team's newbie completely awestruck as she recognizes the legendary resurrection ability of the priest class. Satisfied with the agreed-upon prices, Bai accepts the deal on the spot, agreeing to receive the pending payment at dawn. Mentally, he recalls that the woman's divine wealth talent has the power to shake a magical money tree, yielding absurd random amounts every day. It's obvious that her certainty in promising the 500 coins for tomorrow comes precisely from the hidden effects of this broken talent. Taking advantage of the momentum, Wealthy World proposes a new bet, reminding him that his first victory yielded 2 precious soul stones, and then guarantees that her guild will dominate the first conquest of the Mistwood Forest's heavy difficulties. The player agrees to the playful wager, imposing the condition that he takes all the soul stones that drop from this victory, as well as those the boss lady already has in her pocket. Exuding absolute confidence, the woman seals the pact excitedly and without a second thought. Far away, on the green plains, wolves and boars are massacred, generating continuous experience bonuses for the system. Leaning relaxedly against a rock, he enjoys the breeze, thinking how wonderful the easy life is, being able to level up without lifting a finger. The panel announces the breaking of the level 10 barrier, dropping clean attribute points and making the MC stretch excitedly as he wonders where the heck the item appraiser is. Running aimlessly across the immense plain, the guy grumbles that he walked all that way looking for the NPC to unlock his equipment, finding it absurd that the guy would leave his safe shop just to paint landscapes in the middle of the woods. A red alert flashes in the air, informing him that the champion skeleton has been brutally slain, leaving the necromancer stunned by the instant elimination of his best troop. Placing a hand on his face, he tries to process the level of brutal force needed to destroy his armored summon in a single blow, questioning if the old man from the shop could be the culprit behind the carnage. Annoyed with the waste of time, he kicks the grass, complaining that his peaceful stroll has turned into a massive headache. Another tragic notification shatters the silence, confirming that the Bone Warrior has also turned to dust in the same second. Pondering that the Dark Soldier had nearly 150,000 health points to burn and was still erased from existence, the MC frustratedly admits he should have saved more lifespan if the game's NPCs were this broken. Just then, a silhouette appears out of nowhere, complimenting the kid's incredible ability to summon so many piles of bones at once. The scan screen reveals it's the great appraiser and painter of the village, flaunting completely hidden stats that make Bai Yi break into a cold sweat as he notes the man's terrifying speed. The master crosses his arms, furious that his moment of artistic inspiration was ruined by the skeletons, and demands hefty compensation for the stress, which makes the young man awkwardly offer a few coins. Completely offended by the cheap proposal, the painter points to his own tattered clothes and sarcastically asks if he looks like someone who's starving. Demanding a modest 100 gold coins to forget the offense, the old man shoves a rolled up canvas into the guy's chest, claiming that this exclusive masterpiece is a privilege for a lucky few. Unrolling the crumpled paper under pressure, Bai Yi stares at crooked scribbles that would shame a kindergartner and is left completely speechless. A deadly black aura begins to leak from the artist, who is impatient with the lack of praise, forcing the player to quickly back away, making up the lame excuse that he needs to purify his own mind before contemplating such creative genius. The cheap flattery works like magic, dissolving the murderous aura instantly, and the old man's mood immediately shifts to radiant as he agrees to appraise the guy's junk for free. Emanating a bright golden light from his hands over the sword, the master praises the newbie's achievements while internally grumbling that charging 100 gold for 4 epic appraisals has resulted in a disastrous loss for him in the square. The magic flows, revealing the coveted dungeon treasures and bathing the lawn with the heavy information of the shadow boots, a massive armor set, a colossal sword, and a macabre necklace. Fascinated by his new luxury artillery, the necromancer barely notices the master turning his back and telling him not to interrupt his art again, forcing the guy to beg the old man to wait just a little longer. The painter clenches his teeth, bitterly hoping it's not another cursed shipment of black gold equipment to suck up his time for free. Contrary to the artist's prayers, Bai Yi pulls an epic, grade mortuary relic from his bag, making the man's calm posture shatter on the spot. Averting his tense gaze, the old man stammers that he would do the job for free, but his current level is completely incapable of analyzing such a raw abomination. The kid doesn't hide his complete disbelief at the great master's flimsy response. Maintaining what little dignity he has left, the NPC explains that he's just a part-timer in the newbie village, so it would be impossible for him to handle such complex artifacts there, an excuse that makes total sense to the explorer. With that, the painter shoots a clever look, offering to teach the newbie his own appraisal technique, an idea that leaves Bai Yi ecstatic at the thought of getting rid of the market's abusive fees. But the old man raises a finger, cutting off the other's joy, warning that enrollment in the classes requires a hefty upfront payment. Ironically, the master throws out the price of 500 gold coins, flat. To complicate matters, he displays a worn metal disc, clarifying that the payment must be made entirely in ancient gold coins, forgotten pieces that are worth a real fortune to collectors. Immediately analyzing the unusual demand, the MC remembers he has ancient copper coins in his inventory, deducing that his divine talent could force the cheap silvers to evolve into the required treasure with a snap of his fingers. The hidden quest pops into view, accepting the learning agreement, while the master starts walking back toward the hills, telling him to call only when the impossible collection is complete. The appraiser turns his exhausted neck upon being called again, ready to ask what the problem is with this impatient kid. The complaint dies in his throat when Bai Yi simply holds up a monstrous sack overflowing with ancient gold, cynically asking if that dead weight settles the debt. Grabbing the package with both trembling hands, the painter almost loses his breath, ecstatically assessing the immensity of priceless coins that have fallen from the sky. Taking advantage of the swindler's shock, the guy immediately demands that he fulfill his promise to teach him the skill. Laughing to the heavens at his easily acquired wealth, the master throws a rustic book, sealing the end of the quest, and passing on the basic knowledge of the new profession. With a colossal leap that rips through the wind, the NPC vanishes toward the horizon, telling the young man to gather 10,000 of those rarities if he wants to unlock an even more insane secret in the future. Staring at the empty sky, the necromancer attests that the crazy old man is hiding many valuable cards up his sleeve. Focused on rapid progress, he pulls up the skills menu, pointing out that a basic proficiency will never even scratch the surface of his sealed epic-grade items. Mercilessly burning his own vitality, he injects divine power into the scroll, promoting the magic directly to the intermediate category in an ascending ray of light. With his arms charged with pulsating arcane power, he advances on the black artifact, confident he'll break the seal on the first try. The harsh reality hits him in the face with a humiliating failure notification, reminding him of the ridiculous 10% chance of success, which makes him question his own bad luck. Refusing to be defeated by the system's margins, the guy unleashes the magic repeatedly until his arms give out from exhaustion, accepting a temporary defeat after filling the screen with continuous red errors. Returning to the dirt path frustrated, his frustration is cut short by a system announcement of a wild treasure chest lost on the map. Spotting the prize glowing atop a sunny hill, the hunter celebrates the chaotic sequence of events, deducing that good security in the area will yield absurd profits. Bounding up the slope, he spots a pack of wild wolves growling around the protected prize. With his eyes fixed on the silver lock, he confirms that his bets about the area's protections were completely correct. Cracking his knuckles with pure murderous intent, the necromancer summons his fleshless legends in blue flames, giving the implicable order to sweep the area at once. The bone warriors dive like meteors against the wild pack, tearing the looping bodies apart in a shower of critical damage. The agonizing howls of the beasts reach a peak, calling the entire plains wolf pack to the war on the hill. A furious avalanche of bared teeth tramples the grass, focusing its main attack on the rearguard, making Bai Yi irritatedly question if they plan to play dirty against a lone necromancer. However, the titanic shadow of the champion skeleton covers the player like an impenetrable wall of ice and flames, prompting the human to bet on who has the more destructive army there. The dark greatsword slices through the front line in a deafening sideways blow, sending dogs flying in every direction. The defenders are shredded by freezing blades long before they can lay their claws on the coveted prize. In a desperate act, the Pax King attempts a suicidal charge, only to be mercilessly crushed by the colossal skeletal leader's boot. Bathed in golden lights and reaping experience from boss kills that rain down nonstop on his screen, the necromancer complains that his summons didn't let the prey breathe for 3 seconds. Rushing toward the intact chest, the system officially registers the entry of the first global player to break the level 10 restriction with flying colors. While the guy's ambitious mind already wonders if inanimate boxes also accept promotion tricks, his face lights up with a malicious idea, aware that a quick test won't hurt anyone. Burning another fraction of his stored longevity, the profane magic bathes the pure silver chest, transforming the rigid material into the finest, most radiant gold ever seen. Unlocking the rare clasps with his own hands, an explosion of celestial energy blinds the explorer, forcing him to turn his head from the intensity of the legendary reward. The final loot yields a super powerful drywood staff and, to complete the unbelievable package, a genuine golden treasure scroll floats before his hunter's eyes. Holding the prized route, he tells the system to inject the quest as tracking directly into his personal game map, already smelling the wealth flowing from the paper. But the party ends when the server's bureaucracy interrupts his steps, demanding that the player find the newbie village chief to be mandatorily dispatched to the higher realms of the main city. Analyzing the newly acquired rote, Bai Yi decides to find the village chief first and try to promote the treasure map along the way, but soon realizes with frustration that the destination is in East City and is currently locked. Just then, a warrior in heavy armor appears in a red flash in the middle of the village. The system echoes a global announcement, congratulating the warriors group for completing the dungeon on hard difficulty, catching the attention of the surrounding newbies. Full of confidence, the leader raises a finger and tells his team to get ready, as they're going to face nightmare difficulty immediately. However, the server's chime cuts the mood, announcing that the player White Knight has just finished the same dungeon on nightmare difficulty, leaving the warrior's female companion in complete shock. The group leader is left completely clueless as to how someone managed to clear that difficulty so quickly. Sneaking closer, one of the members whispers in the chief's ear that White Knight has been selling equipment and skill books directly to the Wealthy World Guild. The news hits the warrior hard, making him interpret the action as a direct affront and vowing to make the rival pay dearly for it. Ignoring the stress, the girl in the group suggests they rest a bit before attempting hell level, an idea the chief accepts without question. Looking up at the village sky, he comments on the big system announcements, hoping that other players will learn how to obtain rich rewards. A huge global ranking screen materializes, showing White Knight far ahead in first place at level 10, attracting the irritated gaze of the warrior and the interest of his ally. Impressed by the numbers, the girl comments that the first place player's progress is way too fast, remembering he was at level 8 just minutes ago and has now shot up like a rocket. Strategically assessing the situation, she points out that they've already collected the life soul stones, and that it would be very smart to send the items to build a good relationship with someone so strong. The leader agrees with the plan and gives the girl the go ahead to act on her own while he handles other matters. Walking through the bustling streets, the woman finds the necromancer strolling calmly and calls out to him. Wasting no time, the woman hands over the 10 promised basic soul stones as a reward for the first completion and charmingly asks the guy not to forget her when he gets good items in the future. As she holds the necromancer's hands, she assures him that she will always pay a satisfactory price for his goods, at which point the system confirms the full completion of the contract between them. Satisfied with the outcome of the negotiation, she watches the guy confirm her expectations about the utility of their partnership. He walks away quickly, calling over his shoulder for her to contact him as soon as she manages to leave the newbie village. The woman's gaze falls on the player's back disappearing into the crowd, relieved to attest that building a friendly bond with him was definitely the right move. On the quiet dirt roads, Bai stops in front of a rustic residence, deducing that this must be the right place. Leaning on the porch, the village chief confesses his surprise at seeing a foreigner reach level 10 at such an absurd speed. Getting straight to the point, the MC informs the veteran of his desire to leave the starting village for good. Leaning on his cane, the old man agrees to the request, stating that this godforsaken land will soon belong to the players, and tells the guy to follow him. Before a bluish teleportation matrix, the guide points the way, explaining that their settlement is affiliated with East Sea City. The image of an ancient map appears in the young man's mind, detailing that the destination is one of the Empire's 10 major cities and the most prosperous coastal hub in the region. Consumed by the spatial energy, Bai thanks the chief for his help and promises to return the favor if fate allows. The old man watches the light fade into the air and lets out a heavy sigh as he walks back to his humble home. Near some old tools, he murmurs with concern that the chaotic times of the Forbidden Land are about to begin again. On the peaceful horizon, the veteran laments in silence, not knowing how many people will lose their lives this time, as the village routine continues. Far away, the guild's vice leader asks his red-haired partner if there's any chance White Knight is actually Sumu Bei. Flaunting confidence in her own beauty, the woman ignores the guy's identity and guarantees that a strong man like him won't escape her grasp once they meet. In the center of the imposing East Sea City, the player emerges from a beam of bluish light, admiring the absurd realism of the urban architecture around him. Taking his first steps on the paved street, the guy quietly complains that leaving the starting village didn't even earn him a simple system reward. The frustration is short-lived, as his profane book suddenly levitates, firing off a notification that the scripture of death has leveled up directly to 10. A scorching aura consumes the floating pages as new rules and deadly bonuses for his summons are carved into the paper. With his eyes on the updated information, Bai finds the double death punishment applied to enemies very interesting and cheers upon receiving the exclusive ability. Gaze of Death. A sinister energy surrounds the explorer's body, sending a horrible chill down his spine as if death itself were breathing down his neck. The initial shock gives way to pure excitement as he analyzes the true damage and double range effects of the new power, excitedly questioning if the technique wasn't a bit too broken. The wind suddenly cuts through the scene, bringing a floating elderly man who praises the newcomer's luck and misfortune for awakening a power of that caliber. Facing the imposing figure of the city lord, the necromancer swallows hard, realizing he's found another monstrously strong person whose level is hidden. Without losing his composure, the young man greets the local authority with respect, receiving an evaluative look from the veteran regarding the death power he exudes. The old man calmly comments that a sovereign class should never have appeared in this forbidden land, leaving the MC astonished that his secret was exposed so easily. Lamenting the extreme difficulties of this profession in the future, the Lord offers the young man a test, promising to deliver valuable information about the Sovereign of Death if he emerges victorious. Immediately, the server screen shoves an epic grade quest into the guy's lap, leaving him perplexed at getting such a golden opportunity for free. Desperation hits the moment. A 5-minute timer appears floating on the screen, making Bai curse the system for not giving him any prep time, since he had planned to socket gems into his equipment. In a frantic race across the green grass plains, he cries out to the heavens for some charitable soul to show him the exact way to the teleportation matrix. The landscape abruptly changes to a dead, gloomy desert as the young man steps into the land of the forgotten, carefully reading the relentless requirement to clear everything in under 72 hours. Feeling the heavy atmosphere of the place, he immediately summons his profane legion, confessing it would be impossible to feel safe walking around there alone. A colossal whirlwind of spiritual energy rips through the dry air, bringing the fleshless warriors to the battlefield. Focused on the absurd stats of his new skeleton mage, the player lets out a wicked laugh, noting that his team's firepower has just become much more violent with the fireball spell. The tranquility evaporates when the earth cracks beneath his feet and nefarious creatures begin to sprout from the ground, making the guy retreat in fright at the surprise. A gigantic horde of rotten monsters surrounds the area, revealing that all the former city residents have been turned into level 20 undead. Without retreating a single millimeter in the face of the numerical disadvantage, the commander points his finger forward and orders a full-on assault from his forces. The dark minions clash brutally with the enemy crowd, spreading massive red damage numbers across the screen and relieving the MC that he has plenty of experience to collect. To take advantage of the perfect cluster of targets, the guy decides this is the ideal moment to test the power of his gaze of death. A flaming ocular rift opens in space, obliterating the frontline monsters in a golden ray of destruction that sweeps away the desert dust. Satisfied to have resolved the threat with a single blow, he's intrigued to realize the destroyed bones actually contain true souls. With his hands clasped in a calculating manner, the necromancer throws etiquette out the window and decrees he'll drain everything to fill his mana reserves first. However, upon opening the pages of his macabre scripture, he's left completely confused to see the soul counter stuck at 0. Even though he's absolutely certain he siphoned the fallen energies. In an attempt to find answers, the guy is approached by the spirit of a former guard who explains the relentless curse that has locked everyone's souls in this sandy purgatory. The luminous panel classifies the figure as a special level 20 elite soul form, while the downcast-looking soldier formally introduces himself as Road. A slap to his own forehead helps the guy connect the dots, deducing that he won't be able to farm the coveted souls until the curse is broken. The spirit points a trembling finger toward the desolate horizon, revealing a dome of greenish energy pulsing in the distance. Focusing his vision on the epicenter of the glow, the explorer finds himself looking at a monstrous coffin hung by heavy chains and surrounded by skeletal guards. Admitting the scene is truly terrifying. The palpable tension, even among his summons, makes Bai Yi wonder what's so bizarrely locked inside that ancient wood. The system provides the technical sheet for the soul-locking coffin, warning about the fearsome creature sealed within. But the guy just smirks, wanting to see up close just how terrible the threat can be. Without an ounce of patience for stealthy approaches, he points at the giant artifact and yells for his minions to smash everything. The bone infantry attacks like a furious storm, shattering the mystical chains with sword strikes and violent magical explosions. The coffin lid is thrown far away with a deafening roar, making the ghost soldier scream in absolute panic, while the MC just watches the smoke clear. From the shadows of the sarcophagus emerges a colossal, multi-armed lich wrapped in spectral chains, brandishing the feared title of the area's level 20 boss. The abomination's hate-filled gaze follows its accusation that the intruder ruined its perfect transformation, while Road desperately begs the guy to flee. The skeletal beast advances greedily, claiming that devouring the young man's dense death aura will guarantee its evolution success, only to be met by the necromancer's mocking provocation. Tired of the Klitcha villain monologue, Bai Yi waves his hand dismissively and activates his tactical squad to slice up the enemy. The fleshless mages don't wait another second and unleash a hellish rain of fireballs directly at the ice giant's chest. Unscathed, the monstrous giant scoffs that its high defense would never be broken by such a small group of skeletons. With a sharp movement, it summons a colossal hammer of dark energy, threatening to crush all the minions at once. The violent impact hurls the bone warriors backward without any chance to defend themselves. As it raises an impenetrable ice shield to block the rest of the magic, the abomination angrily questions who this kid is and how he can summon so many powerful creatures. The creature glares at him with flaming eyes full of fury and curiosity about the enemy's origin. In a sharp blow against the ground, the boss summons a horde of abominations and goals to dive headfirst into the battlefield. The direct clash between the two undead armies happens instantly, making the necromancer's front line complain about the unbearable smell of rotten fish coming from the enemies. Aware that a direct confrontation will take too long, Bai Yi decides it's the perfect moment to test the overwhelming power of his new gaze of death ability. A golden ray strikes the lich chest, tearing away a massive chunk of its health bar, while the system announces that the monster's attributes have been drastically reduced because the player's life level is superior. Satisfied with the absurd results, the MC deduces that his hidden sovereign profession has elevated his existential category far beyond normal. Completely bewildered by its own sudden weakness, the creature falls to its knees in the desert, refusing to accept the humiliating defeat. Just then, the skeletal infantry advances without mercy, as the commander orders them to clean up this stinking trash from the map. Full of confidence, he snaps his fingers, telling the warriors to sweep all the remaining pests to dust. A merciless sequence of blows obliterates the rotten army, silencing the desperate scream of the boss, who refuses to be forgotten again. The kill of the black, gold boss floods the screen with an absurd amount of extra experience, instantly leveling the guy up as the monster's red essence floats in the air. Shocked by how easy the fight was, the guy celebrates having jumped straight to level 12 in the blink of an eye. He approaches the enemy's remains and picks up a coveted black, gold-grade cursed crown fragment from the dry sand. Through the system information, the player discovers that gathering all 7 parts will automatically repair the shining relic, but will inflict a heavy curse of mortal energy on the user. The explorer complains that the smaller monsters drop nothing and the boss was too cheap, but decides to keep the piece, guessing the complete item must be the coveted epic level. The guard's spirit appears beside him, extremely euphoric, praising the savior's strength and begging him to hurry and free the next victim. Guiding the way by floating across the desert, the ghost warns that the next challenge won't be so simple, catching the necromancer by surprise upon revealing that the job isn't over yet. Without a heroic bone in his body, Bai immediately warns that if the trouble is too big, he'll simply turn back. But the NPC assures him everything will be fine and tells the young man not to worry about it. In a friendly gesture, he throws a skill book into the guy's hands, who catches the gift, while impatiently retorting why he didn't receive it before the fight started. From the description of the corpse explosion manual, the necromancer assesses that an area of effect damage power will be very useful and decides to promote the technique to test its limits. Then, by injecting his profane energy into the book, he watches the basic magic rapidly evolve into an advanced spell of mass destruction. Curious to see the real damage, the guy points his hand at the fallen boss's remains and instantly activates the explosion. A detonation of blood and crimson flames sweeps across the dead land, raising a violent column that reaches the heavens and illuminates the scene. Shielding his face against the scorching winds, the guy is left completely stunned by the absurd power and colossal range of the new spell. The guard flatters the player, calling him an invincible existence. Flattery the guy quickly ignores, admitting that the area of effect ability will greatly speed up the extermination of monsters from now on. After an exhausting hour of walking with his troop through the dry dunes, the explorer sighs, complaining that this Forbidden Land map is too big to explore on foot. Standing before another gigantic monster on its knees, he smiles cynically, announcing that this was exactly the 7th boss on his kill list. Without the slightest compassion for the exhausted creature, the commander extends his open hand and conjures his lethal explosion. The crimson detonation consumes the rotten body at once, as the beast agonizes, swearing the human will eventually pay the ultimate price for his audacity. Putting the drama aside, the player calmly walks toward the thin smoke and collects the last luminous piece of the relic. With all 7 parts gathered in the palm of his hand, he celebrates the completion of the hunt and eagerly awaits to see what absurd power the synthesis will unleash. Completely terrified by the scene, the spirit screams desperately for the guy not to proceed with the fusion, warning that the object's mortal energy will corrode his mind. The cursed crown floats radiantly under the dark skies, marking the end of the spell, while the guard falls to his knees, lamenting the end of everything, and the MC just ignores the tantrum, not understanding the despair. Already holding the legendary reward as the system announces that the map exploration is halfway done, the necromancer listens to the ghost beg him to throw the crown away before he be brainless zombie like the others. However, the guard's concern, shaking his arm in a panic, is refuted by the system itself, which informs him that his affinity with death has reached its limit, rendering the item's corrosion completely useless. The shouting is interrupted when thunderous tremors crack the dry earth, forcing Bai Yi to order his skeletons to assume an immediate defensive posture against the new threat. Tentacles of pure dark energy begin to violently sprout from the cracks in the sandy soil, shattering the surface. Overcome by pure terror at the growing darkness, the ghost soldier repeatedly mutters that the true culprit has finally awakened. A crimson coffin shoots out of the ground at the epicenter of the profane storm, heralding the arrival of Franklin, the feared lich responsible for cursing all the former inhabitants of this forgotten land. Faced with imminent danger, the ghost reveals himself to be the city's former mayor and begs for salvation, offering any price in return. A hidden quest the guy gladly accepts because he finds the contractor likable. Thanks to a considerable boost in his magic attributes from a spell cast by the mayor, the necromancer expresses his gratitude for the support, promising to fight with everything he has alongside his ally. From the depths of profane magic emerges the colossal figure of the undead archmage, floating amidst bolts of lightning and displaying his terrible power as the level 20 ghost boss. The monster recognizes the mayor's spirit and scoffs at his survival in the area, focusing its entire attention on the attractive aura of the newly forged crown. With a bony hand extended toward the guy, the lich arrogantly orders the cursed relic to immediately return to its true master. The crown doesn't even tremble, forcing the villain to question why his call failed, while the guy brazenly scoffs, asking why his treasure would obey the orders of some random creature. Wasting no time, the human places the golden crown on his own head, bathing his body in an overwhelming light and extreme system bonuses, taunting the enemy by asking if it looks good on him. Furious at the audacity, the sorcerer summons his personal legion of shadow knights through portals torn in the air, which makes Bai Yi praise the grandeur of the troop, before ordering his skeletons to run them over. The elite troops clash brutally in the middle of the desert in a chaotic battle of shining blades and dark beasts. With his staff raised and firing celestial sparks, the commander decides to apply a severe penalty by casting a curse aura over the enemy area. A storm of luminous darts rains down on the Black Cavalry, crushing their movement speed to the point that the guy ironically remarks the mounts are crawling slower than slugs. Seeing his forces pathetically paralyzed, the boss grinds his teeth in pure irritation at the invader's unshackable audacity. The player smiles confidently, attesting to the gigantic leap in his attributes granted by the Golden Relic, only lamenting that an item of that legendary grade is impossible to promote with his talent. Finally losing his patience with the crawling humiliation, the Lich ascends to the heavens, gathering deadly black magic in his hands and swearing he will never let this miserable human breathe in peace. Without retreating an inch against the crushing fury, the Necromancer goads the monster into showing its final hand. As soon as the creature shapes its lethal spell, a passive curse of continuous agony is branded onto its body by the system, brutally draining its life every second as a counter-attack to its dark attributes. Collapsed to his knees under the weight of the corrosive magic, the Archmage vomits dark energy, stammering that taking such violent damage was absolutely impossible. He raises his bony head, consumed by resentment, demanding to know at the top of his lungs the true identity of the bastard who dares to destroy him like this. In a mocking tone, the human mysteriously covers part of his face and replies that he's just a nobody the creature doesn't need to bother knowing. The Lich launches a devastating blast of darkness while screaming in fury at the absurd insult, forcing the guy to counter the attack with a thunderous ray of light. Furious, the sorcerer raises his arms to the heavens, promising to bury the invader under this cursed sand and summoning a brutal storm that swirls mercilessly around him. The whirlwind of cutting winds kicks up dust, forcing the young man to raise his heavy arms to avoid being thrown away by the massive force of the spell. From the core of the chaotic hurricane, the villain commands the dark winds, demanding the human's immediate death and the absorption of all his stolen power. A colossal, decaying zombie dragon emerges from the storm, roaring amidst dark lightning and marking its crushing entrance as the sorcerer's ultimate summoning. Impressed by the enemy's ability to summon such a high-rank beast, the explorer finally concedes, admitting that the test imposed by the main city's lord carried a genuine difficulty. The guy plants his feet on the ground, raising his staff, which crackles with blue electricity, ready to intercept the colossal advance. An annihilating ray of energy descends, tearing through the air directly toward the MC's isolated position on the ground. The impact generates a blinding flash of destruction, forcing the Archmage to scream in disbelief at how a simple frontline skeletal warrior was able to raise a shield and block the breath of his supreme summon. Protected under the continuous energy dome maintained by his minion, Bai Yi takes advantage of the calm to plan his next massive counterattack. With the power of the Gaze of Death active and aimed at the clouds, he demands that his bone troops get out of the way immediately and clear a path for the kill. Flaunting a predatory confidence, the Necromancer guarantees he's more than ready to definitively show what his true power is made of. Firing his annihilating ray directly at the villain, the beam collides violently as the Archmage tries to defend himself using the power of his cursed crown, cursing the human as a damn brat. The barrier shatters into pieces under the pressure of the blow, forcing the monster to summon a frosty retaliation to try and contain the imminent destruction. Without retreating a single millimeter, the Necromancer plants his feet on the ground and continues to channel the massive energy from his hand, easily withstanding the impact of the magical clash. Laughing in pure mockery, the sorcerer taunts that the attack won't be enough and guarantees that the fragility of the human body will lead him straight to his grave. The boss's confidence vanishes instantly, replaced by absolute shock as he realizes the kid has mastered the life-sharing ability. Trying to work around the situation, the creature points its staff, stating that this technique isn't entirely invincible and has its natural flaws. With a broad movement, the monster conjures a massive spell of death and decay in the form of a gigantic spectral rose that blooms on the battlefield. Columns of energy rip through the ground violently, trapping the MC inside an inescapable prison of bones. Dark thorns sprout from the earth and pierce the air, completely immobilizing the guy's body between the flying stakes. Slightly surprised by the heavy-handed tactic, he quickly realizes the enemy is trying to use area of effect damage skills to break his life protection. Without showing a hint of desperation, the player announces he's recalling all reinforced skeletons to his summoning space, challenging the monster to try and break his defense again. Annoyed by the unshakable audacity, the Archmage roars for his troops to capture the enemy leader immediately to end this once and for all. The villain is caught completely off guard when one of the human army's gigantic beasts charges, tearing through the air directly at him. Following the sequence of red critical damage melting the enemy's health, Baiyi remains calm with his arms crossed, murmuring to himself that he just needs to hold on a little longer until the end. Completely obliterated by the crushing force, the boss plummets to the ground, crumbling to pieces and admitting his defeat, lamenting the audacity of this miserable human. With an implacable posture, the guy ironically asks if the monster was joking about losing, as he consumes his death energy points to channel the final blow, which rips a scream of denial from the archmage. The boss's spiritual essence trembles in pure terror before the abyss, babbling that this defeat couldn't possibly be real. The nefarious glow in the creature's eyes finally fades forever in the darkness. After the system confirms the kill with an experience bonus and a level, up to 17, the necromancer watches the Lord's ashes scatter across the dead desert. The victory over the Bone Mount is also tallied, launching the guy's level straight to 18, which makes him celebrate the shower of impressive rewards raining down on his screen. With a handful of advanced soul stones in his hands, he decides to promote all the items at once so he never has to worry about running out of lifespan again. As he absorbs the pure energy that adds 50 years to his system counter, the MC clenches his fist, relieved to have definitively solved his survival crisis. A global announcement notifies all server players of White Knight's epic achievement, making one of the warriors comment, in awe, that he needs to ally with the big shot as soon as possible. At the same time, a seductive woman from the newbie group states they should leave the starting village soon to find the hero, confidently flaunting that he'll fall for her charms easily once he's a real man. Ignoring the sudden fame, the commander focuses on his new reward and analyzes the epic, Great Dragon Bone pendant that just dropped into his bag. Without a second thought, he uses his talent to promote the artifact and lets out an excited laugh as he sees the item transform into a legendary horn that summons a formidable mount. The guy activates the wind instrument, causing a gigantic blue magic circle to pulse and expand violently across the sandy ground. Shielding his face with his arm from the dark winds cutting through the air, he's impressed by the absurd density of the death aura emanating from the summoning spell. A colossal bone paw smashes the ground with absurd force, accompanied by a thunderous voice insulting the human as a fool. The majestic silhouette of the giant ice dragon rises amidst spiritual flames, looking down at the guy below with deep disdain for being summoned by someone so frail-looking. Cutting the beast's arrogance off at the root with a snap of his fingers, the player activates a relentless purifying light that makes the creature howl in pain and writhe under the burning punishment. Completely tamed by the suffering that melts its bones, the dragon lowers its monstrous head, begging him to dispel the punitive magic and humbly recognizing him as its master. As the dust settles, the beast prostrates itself on the sand and formally declares its desire to serve as his private mount, triggering the glowing system unlock notification. A new global announcement echoes, informing of the opening of the entire region's mount leaderboard. At the exact moment the Ice Colossus activates its special ability and drastically shrinks in size. The small creature lands comfortably on the guy's shoulder, who gives a smug smile at securing the #1 spot in the world rankings and eagerly wonders if the beast has good combat skills. Upon confirming the massive stats of the mythic level creature, his eyes widen in amazement at the absurd power and brutal defenses he's just acquired for his advanced team. Far away in the safety of the city, other adventurers watch the classification panel in the sky in complete disbelief at the mythical mount, concluding that the MC is playing on a level completely beyond their reality. One of the server's rich guys tries to downplay the feat, suggesting the kid must have a low-rank talent masking his success, but ends up emitting with a laugh that all their money means absolutely nothing next to that legendary achievement. Breaking the calm of the desert stroll, the small dragon turns its head and informs its master that it has just tracked the exact location of the hidden soul coffin. The mayor's spirit energetically joins the conversation, pointing an excited finger toward the dead horizon and urging the necromancer to follow him quickly. The group marches silently through a twisted forest, crossing a dense area engulfed in mortal darkness. Hidden among the rotten roots, they finally find the purple chest containing Franklin's soul, the epic item that maintains the defeated sorcerer's unbreakable immortality. With the heavy artifact in his hands, the explorer sighs, complaining about the sealed object's absurd durability of 1,000,000 points. Consumed by an incandescent fury, the mayor's spirit advances, asking to handle the matter with his own hands, only to be ridiculed by the voice of the villain's soul, which mocks the pathetic strength of a mere ghostly fragment. The vengeful soul completely ignores the futile taunt and unleashes a brutal spell directly at the box, swearing that the devoured victims would bring about Franklin's end, who begins to scream in pure agony as his immortality is crushed. After the box breaks and reveals the keys to a valuable reward chest, the spirit begins to gradually fade into the air, thanking the hero from the bottom of his heart for everything he did for Sunset City. With an expression of pure peace and relief on his translucent face, the former mayor gives his last gentle goodbye before transcending. An avalanche of golden notifications floods the guy's vision, delivering extra attribute points and gold coins, which makes him cheer for having finished the quest and reached level 20 at the exact moment he needs to leave. Crossing the luminous transfer portal, the MC lands in the clean square of East Sea City and lets out a proud laugh, noting he's the only player in the entire world to have reached this restricted area so far. Since there are no witnesses around to cause a commotion, he decides this is the perfect, quiet setting to test his mount's true potential. The necromancer extends his hand in a grand summoning gesture and calls forth the imposing presence of his icy companion from its resting space. The colossal beast lands, crushing the perfect pavement of the central square, as the commander standing below orders them to head to Lord Sidhu's tower to deliver the mission results. With a thunderous flap of its wings that kicks up all the dust and sweeps the empty street, the beast distorts the wind and effortlessly takes flight toward the main castle. From his luxurious balcony, the experienced city lord watches the creature's majestic flight across the sky and lets out a satisfied smile, praising the young man for having surpassed all his expectations with such ease. A short time later, the young man enters the double doors of the noble hall with firm steps and begins to politely introduce himself to the imposing, back-turned ruler. Before he can finish his sentence, the lord lets out a light laugh and gently asks the guy to make his enormous animal shrink, warning that the refined castle simply couldn't handle the mess a monster of that size would cause to the walls. With the small, obedient dragon now resting peacefully on his shoulder, the explorer waits patiently for the white-haired lord's careful evaluation. As they walk along the luxurious, well-lit hall carpet, the host analyzes the guy with great attention and comments that his class is definitely not just at the dominator level, leaving the young man quite confused by the unexpected observation. The two settle down across from each other in exquisite armchairs to talk more comfortably, and the lord admits he's not sure about the real variations of the dominator professions when questioned by the young man. As the hefty mission reward is discreetly and automatically credited by the system, the serious-faced lord continues his explanation, revealing that in the worldwide game of all races, classes are divided into hierarchies, starting strictly with common. Continuing the explanation in the dim light of the window, the veteran details that the Sovereign of Death is a hidden class of the supreme tier and warns that, through normal evolution paths, the guy should never have been able to break through this absurd level of strength before reaching stage 21. Glancing at his own gloved hand, the MC mentally agrees that this accelerated growth and rule breaking is also what intrigues him the most, but he holds back, knowing he can't spread the secret of his unique promotion system to anyone. The old man takes a serene sip of his hot tea and advises the young man not to celebrate the easy start too soon, explaining under Bai Yi's submissive gaze that the Sovereign of Death class will require the shedding of countless levels of blood to truly evolve from now on. With his arms open in a theatrical and dramatic gesture, the ruler announces that the divine Forbidden Land is fated to collapse into a violent war soon, tasking the hero with advancing his class by crushing entire nations so that humanity can gain respect in all worlds under the Empire's protection. Without getting carried away by the epic narrative of grandeur, the necromancer interrupts the digression, dryly reminding him that the kingdom borders haven't even been opened for passage by the world system. The host then hands over a letter and seals the commitment, instructing the adventurer to locate a specific contact and guaranteeing the man will provide him with the necessary forbidden treasure to bypass any territorial block without suffering penalties. Staring at the old photograph of the bearded target attached to the documents, the guy recognizes the mission and automatically signs the Imperial Hall's contract through the interface, accepting the extreme condition that he will become a hunted traitor if he breaks the loyalty agreement. Without breaking the bureaucratic rhythm of the conversation in the hall, the Lord promises to give an official recommendation once the guy reaches his third-class advancement, then pauses to give him another valuable item as a gift. The Lord passes an emerald medallion with mystical engravings into the human's hands, pleasantly informing him that the artifact will grant him undeniable free passage through any corner of East Sea City from now on. Reading the administrator information on the symbol, which titles him as Master Number 7, forged by Sidhu himself, Bai Yi is completely shocked, imagining he just received the properties of a first-tier city as if it were nothing. With his back to the young man and admiring the city view, the old ruler calmly assures him that the bearer of that insignia has the authority to do absolutely whatever they please within his territory. The Lord's calm attention is instantly diverted when the explorer asks in a lethal tone if this means he has a free pass to kill people in the city. With his eyes glowing a menacing red and the file in hand, The guy coldly states that he has a few meddlesome old acquaintances in his way that need to be eliminated once, and for all so they don't cause problems in the future. Wasting no time on empty plans, the colossal dragon regains its original size and dives straight from the castle balcony, ripping through the sky and cutting through the metropolis's wind. From high above, comfortably mounted on the back of his mythical beast, the commander admires the flow of people below and attests with admiration that East Sea City will soon achieve the extreme greatness of the imperial capital itself, if it continues to prosper like this. Arriving at his new destination, the MC lands in front of a huge mansion, escorted by his skeletal mount, and confirms that this must be the exact location of the reward. But as soon as he tries to enter, 2 guards cross their spears, firmly blocking the path and curtly informing him that the area is restricted. Wasting no time on bureaucracy, the guy settles the matter by pulling out his newly acquired administrator card to display it before the watchman. The mood changes instantly, with the men hastily opening the gates and bowing in reverence as the hero calmly walks through, ironically asking if he has permission to pass now. Observing the luxurious architecture and the absurd size of the property from above, he comments impressed that the city lords spared no expense on the gift. Just then, the system requires the new owner to register an official name for the place, which makes him reflect briefly before deciding to name the mansion White Knight Courtyard. The digital interface confirms the update instantly, setting the named territory as his personal teleportation and resurrection point within the main city. Walking through the finely furnished and impeccably decorated living room, the guy notes with relief that he won't have to spend a single second on decorating and can already settle in comfortably. Already settled on the spacious sofa in the hall, he stretches his legs, deciding this is the perfect moment to rest his body and learn a brand new technique. With a heavy, dark book in his hands, the necromancer laments the pain in his wallet from burning 1,000 soul points in a single go to absorb the knowledge. The system soon rewards the sacrifice by announcing the unlocking of the triple S rank, Death Dominion Leap, leaving the player excited to finally plug the mobility gap in his arsenal. Eager to test the practical results, he casts the spell, channeling energy until he creates a swirling blue portal right in the middle of the room. With a quick and precise leap, the guy jumps through the spatial rift, which responds perfectly to his command. The hero suddenly appears outside, startling one of the gatehouse guards, but he quickly calms the man down, assuring him he was just testing the spell's range. Satisfied with the absurd trick he just integrated, he casts a malicious glance, wondering if he can force the same traversal directly into his troops, summoning space. Dozens of skeletal warriors burst furiously through multiple spatial vortices, proving the trick works perfectly for invading the field. Analyzing the result on the field, the commander realizes with amazement that he can launch his entire legion into blind spots, making his siege almost invincible, although he admits the flaw of not being able to use promotions in such a move. With the practical tests concluded, the necromancer opens a new magical path and tells himself that the priority now is to make some quick money. Walking through the paved market streets, he's approached by an NPC vendor who praises him and pushes the sale of exclusive star stones, an offer the guy swallows up on the spot. Right after closing the deal with the items in hand, the adventurer turns his back, tossing a bag full of coins behind him as payment. Walking under the city sun, the MC laughs to himself, realizing that his dirty scheme of buying low-level stones, promoting them in the system, and selling them back has already earned him an exorbitant profit, setting the auction house as his next target. A few minutes' march later, the player reaches the center, where the imposing and exquisite headquarters of the Eastern Commerce stands grandly. Entering the gigantic hall, lined with chandeliers and extravagant decorations, he observes the environment and mutters that this is the perfect sanctuary for burning fortunes. However, his free ascent is cut short midway up the red staircase by an impeccable receptionist, who blocks the passage, informing him that the second floor is for major clients only. The employee details the costs, pointing out that the cheapest ticket costs 1 million coins from the starting area, revealing absurd prices that leave the hero shocked by the place's inflation. Without backing down a step, Bai displays the special VIP insignia he got from the Lord and asks with complete nonchalance if the piece of metal grants any advantages in there. The attendant's eyes widen as she recognizes the item instantly, and her tone shifts to one of utmost respect, explaining that the credential offers free entry, notifications of major events, and a direct pass to room 007. Already sprawled on the sofa in the luxurious cabin, enjoying the elite treatment, the guy demands to know the exact conversion rate between the new spiritual currency and common gold. Promptly meeting the client's demand, the receptionist projects a mystical image of a soul coin, revealing that this currency carries real fragments of lifespan created by powerful beings, making it the only guaranteed store of value on the continent. Understanding the voracious logic of this market, The explorer pulls out a handful of high-level radiant gems and confirms if he can dump those pieces in the auction to receive live payment in the supreme currency. To speed up the process and clear his inventory, he hands the valuable batch to the assistant, ordering her to handle all the auction procedures. As soon as he finishes the bureaucracy and steps into the hallway, the system screen flashes aggressively, alerting him to a received message notification. Far away in the urban center, a large magic portal materializes in the main square and spits out the elf mage and her team, who recognize the metropolis's air and desperately start looking for Lord White Knight. At that exact moment, a widespread commotion takes over the civilians, who crowd together, pointing their fingers at the sky, completely astonished by the low flight of a skeletal ice dragon. The group's swordsman companion observes the majestic beast overhead and indignantly recalls that it's the big shot's exclusive mount, grumbling about the day they'll ever get close to such a privilege. Landing suddenly in the middle of the team with the crushing weight of the mythical beast, Bai Yi compliments the kid's level progression while receiving a shower of thanks from the mage for the equipment sold in the past. The sorceress hastily announces that she needs to explore the new area to get to know the terrain and promises to pay off the overdue installments as soon as possible before turning to leave. But before the friendly escape can happen, the commander thrusts his hand out, blocking the girl's path and demanding a minute of her attention. Pulling out an ancient, dangerous-looking scroll, the relentless vendor states with a wicked smile that the mage will definitely want to get her hands on this supreme ability. With irresistible salesmanship, he teases the buyer, asking how far her pockets would stretch to guarantee 100% success in a bet on absolute destiny. The ally stares at the juicy proposal, feeling her interest burn through her reason, but unable to hide her dread of the price. Taking the initiative to break the ice, she approaches, trying to maintain her composure, and reinforces that her only real goal there is to forge a deep survival alliance with the indestructible lord. The entire negotiation is suddenly interrupted by the roar of another portal in the square, flinging the armored ally out, who lands confused at being left behind by his own team. Soon, the warrior's face darkens as he recognizes the transporter's activity and disgustedly deduces that if the elite are arriving in droves, the insufferable traitorous couple must be showing up any moment. Confirming the SAR prediction almost instantly, a spiral of fire spits the former enemies onto the courtyard, with the blonde-haired man hysterically celebrating his escape from the starting zone, like a pathetic trophy. Without showing the slightest shred of pity, the necromancer raises a hand and snaps his fingers, summoning his army to seal the teleportation square's exit with a wall of bones. The dark troops march relentlessly, grabbing the arms of frightened civilians and other players in the scene, imposing a violent containment that cuts off any escape route. Observing the aggressive maneuver from a few meters away, the elf holds back her own companions, warning that White Knight knows exactly what he's doing and that the order is to just watch the show. The hostage crowd erupts into collective despair, exchanging accusations against the senseless imprisonment and screaming that their physical attributes are plummeting under the deathly smoke. With a firm gesture demanding silence from everyone, the guy informs the civilians that no one will get hurt if they just cooperate with the one-by-one screening at the exit. One of the burly players completely ignores the warning and flips the MC the middle finger, arrogantly questioning where he got the authority to give orders in the capital. This audacity is punished in the blink of an eye as shadows materialize, slicing the rebels back with cruel swords, leaving the rest of the group pale, as they watch years of life evaporate without the slightest warning. Maintaining a cold face and relaxed arms after the demonstration of brutality, Bai Yi sweeps his eyes over the crowd and asks challengingly if there are any more malcontents among them. With the terrifying flapping of the dragon's wings blocking the sun and the perimeter sealed from all angles, no one else dares to breathe a wrong under the dictatorship of death. Faced with the successful blockade and absolute silence, the leader gives a slight smile of someone who loves obedience and decrees the controlled opening of the passage. As the magic portal shimmers, releasing the innocents at a snail's pace, the guy impatiently scratches his head, confessing to his own mount how ridiculous it is to take so long to reel in his revenge. The frustrating wait ends when the intense light throws the criminal couple onto the pavement, with the traitor complaining to the world about the traffic jam at the spawn point. Completely shocked by the sight around her, the traitorous mage freezes, pointing a trembling finger as she lays eyes on the armored warrior they themselves had left for dead. Recognizing the despicable accent of the duo cutting through the silence, the explorer spins on his heels and dryly states that the two pests he'd been waiting for have finally fallen into his trap. Completely blinded by his lack of awareness, the disloyal swordsman calms his partner, swearing on his life that he'll sweep that trash out of the way with ease, so they can enjoy the new world without distractions. The villainess trembles from head to toe as she meets the gaze of her betrayed former ally, feeling the murderous energy emanate freely from the MC at the back of the square. Waving his arm to shoo away flies, the commander of death shouts for the rest of the civilians to get out of sight immediately if they value their next 20 years of life on Earth. Face to face with the prey he's hunted for so long, the necromancer ironically remarks on the lucky encounter, throwing in the traitors, faces the immense work he went through to track down the two plagues. Ignoring the red warning of lethal danger, the arrogant swordsman plays dumb and turns to his armored ally, blaming everything on a useless search effort in the previous map. In a mix of pure cynicism and audacity, the criminal beats his chest, laughing hysterically at the accusation of treason and selling the flimsy lie that the deaths were just accidents along the way at a low level. Patience hits absolute zero and Bai Yi shoots his arm forward, coldly ordering his bone monsters to explain the rules of engagement to the idiot out loud. Still not understanding the precipice he's standing on, the criminal maintains his smug smile and asks what the real reason is for so much unprovoked offense in the middle of a public street. The answer flies through the air, embedding a shower of icy blades that tear and shred the arrogant man's flesh, drawing shrill screams of pure agony as the warriors tear him apart to return the falsehood in kind. Watching the brutal dismemberment of his former partner just a few feet away, Mu Bai freezes in place, completely losing the color in his face as he realizes White Knight's threats had no brakes. With a sharp tug on the bloodied collar of the shredded armor, the youth of death yanks the trash off the ground, asking him straight to his face if death really seems like a mere accident now. Overcome by a massive bloodlust that ignites his eyes in reddish flames, the MC tightens his intimidating grip, threatening to grant him the ultimate experience of the end of the line for free. A dense, dark, lethal blast sweeps up from below, erasing the rest of the traitor's physical form in a violent explosion of decrepit energy that leaves no trace. After the system confirms the target's complete obliteration directly on the interface, the Avenger turns lethally to the surviving partner, informing her that her timer just hit 0. The dead man's ally backs away, trembling and holding her own arms in a desperate, useless attempt to ward off death, stammering in terror at the unshackable certainty that he possesses the absolute means to predict her every breath. But the final sentence has its axe stayed by the sudden pull of the elf mage, who grabs the killer's arm in a panic, yelling that the Metropolis patrols are rounding the corner and that their crew needs to get off the radar right now. Completely ignoring the danger warning, Lord White Knight looks at the general confusion in the square and comments with disdain that all the noise is getting way too annoying. Realizing the mood there is only going to get worse, the elf mage announces that her team will withdraw first to handle their own business and promises to get in touch later. She then apologizes for causing trouble, but the necromancer reassures the girl, stating that he's already found who he was looking for and that it will all be over very soon. With a deafening roar that makes the entire square tremble, the bone dragon beats its monstrous wings and takes flight, capturing the attention of all the terrified civilians. Wasting no time, the Avenger grabs the traitorous sorceress Rian by the neck with a dark aura and warns her that their game isn't over yet, dragging the woman straight to the resurrection hall. Watching the winged beast fly away in the sky, the city's heavily armored guards comment among themselves that the ancestor really seems determined to cause a scene at the sacred sanctuary. Without hesitating in the face of the confusion, the patrol captain orders his squad to march to the location simply to maintain civil order, instructing the soldiers to ignore anything else that happens there. Far away, on the steps of the Resurrection Hall, Mu Bai falls to his knees, coughing violently after losing 10 years of his lifespan, all at once from the brutal death. Still disoriented, he looks up and sees Bai Ye ascending the staircase with his partner trapped by magic, desperately begging the MC to wait and let him explain everything. Terror grips the warrior as he crawls to the feet of his former boss, shockingly recalling the horrible sensation of death he just experienced firsthand. Trying to save his own life at all costs, the coward points a finger at his fallen girlfriend and swears he was forced by her to commit the betrayal, pathetically appealing to the 5 years of friendship they had. The youth of death looks down with a cutting coldness and agrees to return all that time of consideration at once, curtly ordering the trash to kill his own partner. In absolute panic, the woman's eyes widen and she begs for her life as the blade advances mercilessly toward her. Without a second thought, Mu Bai plunges the sword into his companion's back, panting as he murmurs that this nightmare is finally over. Shedding crocodile tears, the traitor goes back to crawling on the ground, begging for clemency, admitting he was wrong, and pleading for the Lord to forgive him. With a face devoid of any empathy, Bai Yi just lets out an ironic comment, asking if he really thinks it's over. A gigantic shadow stake explodes from the ground, piercing Mu Bai's body from bottom to top in an instant, as the Avenger coldly declares that now he can trust his fate. The two lifeless bodies lie on the hall's pavement under the implacable gaze of the MC, awaiting the system's timer that keeps the dead in place for half an hour. The players watching the macabre scene from the sidelines begin to whisper among themselves, agreeing that the adulterous couple finally got the punishment they deserved. Resurrecting instantly, Ruin reappears, losing another decade of her life, and immediately begs for mercy beside her boyfriend's corpse, crying that if she dies again, it will be the definitive end. Staring at the woman with deep disgust, the commander of Shadows orders her to get out of his sight, stating that dirtying his hands with a viper like her would be a waste. To ensure she keeps her distance, he delivers a violent kick that sends the traitor flying to the bottom of the stairs in a cloud of magic dust. Satisfied with cleaning up the trash, the Lord stretches his arms, relaxing his shoulders, relieved to have finally completed his great revenge and ready to enjoy this new universe. Just then, the capital's armored knights approach, confirming the end of the criminal couple's execution, and bid a respectful farewell before retreating to their posts. Taking a deep breath and feeling the weight lift from his shoulders, the guy decides his next step will be to sweep the market for products and gather enough gold to upgrade his equipment. In another part of the bustling city, a teleportation portal opens, spitting the MC directly onto the commercial street. Holding a bag of money and some papers, he grumbles in frustration that he spent almost a full day scouring 10 major cities and that manually buying and selling things is a ridiculous waste of time. Interrupting his complaint, a voice calls his attention with a cheerful tone, joking that they've just brought the perfect pillow for someone who was feeling sleepy. The conversation leads him to the enormous doors of one of the largest and most luxurious commerce houses on the continent. Already settled at a lavish table enjoying a banquet, Bai gets straight to the point and asks the merchant woman sitting across from him what she wants, demanding total frankness in the negotiation. The merchant lays her cards on the table, stating that her lack of combat power is compensated by an absurd talent for making money, and reveals her desire to establish a chamber of commerce in deep partnership with him. The guy immediately refuses the partnership offer, swirling his wine glass and clarifying that he doesn't want an equal partnership, but rather an agent who works directly for him. Completely offended by the blunt rejection, she slams her hand on the table in a mix of shock and indignation at the audacity of the proposal. Remaining calm, Bai shows a magic vial and reveals that his hidden talent allows him to consume raw resources to raise the grade of any item by 1 level. Hearing this impossible information, the woman's attitude changes in the blink of an eye, and she raises a finger, swearing she will handle all the market bureaucracy for just a 1% cut of the profits. He accepts the promising deal but breaks the friendly mood by demanding 10 million gold coins on the spot to change his profession, leaving the negotiator jaw dropped. Weighing the risk, the girl sighs and proposes signing a sole contract, guaranteeing the money in exchange for keeping 5% of all future profits he generates. A system screen illuminates the MC's face, revealing that the girl's class is exactly the god of wealth, an extremely rare triple S rank talent. Impressed by the absurd discovery, he questions if she's serious about the heavy investment and receives immediate confirmation that she's never been more certain. Sealing the $1 million pact, the two shake hands over the table under the magical light of the system, which threatens to obliterate the soul of anyone who breaks the financial agreement. Wasting no time on formalities, the new subordinate transfers the colossal mountain of 10 million gold, demanding that he advance his class at once. A storm of golden energy explodes around Bai Yi, illuminating the hall as the panel congratulates him on the successful profession advancement. Curious about the result of the massive investment, the merchant asks if he learned any new skills, and he calmly replies that there were only 2. The first magic revealed on the interface is the Money Shield, a passive defense that uses the coins in his inventory to completely block any incoming damage. The second exclusive item generated is the God of Wealth's Ingot, a valuable artifact that massively increases the attributes and magic power of whoever keeps it equipped. Observing the golden ingot in the palm of his hand, the explorer concludes that this is an exclusive profession equipment, functioning very much like his scripture of death. Next, he materializes a gigantic, shining tree made of coins and energy, impressing his ally by showing how much his fortune tree has grown. Excited by the display of power, the merchant opens her inventory and proudly shows a bag full of 680 authentic soul coins. She pulls out an advanced spiritual life stone and places it in her boss's hands, encouraging him to use his special talent to upgrade the crystal right away. A mystical purple aura envelops the object in Bai Yi's hand as the system's power refines the raw stone, instantly promoting its rarity. The enhanced crystal radiates an intense light capable of increasing lifespan by 100 years, leaving the girl breathless and completely mesmerized by the imminent profit. At that moment, a global notification announces that the protection period for newbies is about to end and the Blue Star Zone rankings are being released to all players. Ignoring the countdown, the leader tosses an exclusive VIP card on the table and informs the girl that she now also has a property to manage at the capital's auction house. Seeing her boss prepare to leave, she asks his destination and is told to enjoy the auction experience while he departs to turn in a quest. Following his path, Bai travels to Red Leaf City and finds the senior warrior calmly painting a canvas in front of a massive waterfall. The painter turns his head in surprise, praising the guy's impressive speed in returning from his travels so soon. Proud of his own art, the veteran points to the newly finished painting, inviting the young man to admire his masterpiece. He lets out a scandalous laugh, exalting his own genius, while the MC watches the ego trip with a bead of sweat on his face. The painter's smile vanishes when he notices the open book of death in the guy's hand, realizing with a shock that he's in the presence of the sovereign of death, and that the quest has been completed. With a satisfied smile, Bai says nothing and simply dumps a blinding mountain of 10,000 ancient gold coins on the ground at the veteran's feet. Stunned by the fortune, the painter thanks him, asking the guy not to forget him in the future if he gets more of that material, which is promptly guaranteed by the Lord. In return, the veteran channels a bright, wild green energy in the palm of his hand, condensing the secret quest's reward. The magic shoots directly to the MC, granting him a brutal temporary ability called Shadow, Chasing Sword Aura. Reading the panel's description, which confirms the attack's legendary grade combat power, the guy is fascinated by the absolute devastation the ability carries. Taking advantage of his contact's goodwill, he pulls a red envelope from his pocket and says he has one more small favor to ask before he leaves. Reading the document's content with suspicion, the painter raises an eyebrow and questions if the guy's crazy plan is really to cross the national border now. Determined to help, the man summons a spiraling green portal and offers to give him a direct ride to his destination. In the blink of an eye, the two are flung through the air at high speed, with Bai startled by their sudden departure without any preparation. Back in the capital, the merchant is walking with a group of bigwigs when one of them points to an anomaly in the sky, worried that someone might cross the border and cause severe diplomatic problems. Exuding confidence, she smiles and tells her companion to stop asking unnecessary questions and focus on his work, stating that the mysterious guy is the only one capable of taking them to the absolute top. The landing kicks up dust as the guy steps firmly into a flowery field of sunflowers, finally arriving in the domains of the neighboring kingdom. He breathes the pure air, looking at the sunny sky, and praising the peaceful environment, receiving an ironic response from the painter about him making a storm in a teacup. However, red alert screens pop up in the air, congratulating the player for being the first to invade another country before the start of the national war and warning that all local NPCs will try to expel him by force. Without the slightest pity for the newcomer, the veteran turns his back and steps into a dark portal, announcing he has things to take care of and leaving the guy there to fend for himself. Alone in the open field with the capital's walls blocked on the horizon, Bai laments that as a wanted invader, his only remaining option is to wander stealthily through the kingdom. Wandering alone through the field, Bai suddenly stops and looks up, sensing something approaching. A gigantic demon eagle descends, tearing through the sky directly toward him. Startled by the absurd size of the creature, the MC wonders what the heck kind of flying monster it is. With a violent impact, the creature digs its talons into the ground, raising a cloud of dirt, but the guy manages to leap back and dodge the surprise attack. Already regaining his balance, he plants his feet and summons his ice dragon, ordering the beast to get into the fight. Answering its master's call, the enormous bone dragon materializes on the field, letting out a menacing roar. Wasting no time, the skeletal beast fires a brutal blast of freezing energy directly at the demon bird in the sky. The attack hits its target dead on, causing a massive blue explosion in the air. Despite taking the devastating blow, the winged monster survives and lets out a sharp shriek as it continues to fly. Analyzing the enemy's resilience, Bai extends his hand forward and begins to concentrate his own magic. Just then, the eagle retaliates by firing 3 purple energy projectiles from its talons straight to the ground. The attacks rip through the air and hit the battlefield, causing a violent detonation of dark magic. Emerging unscathed from the smoke, the Lord comments with relief that it was lucky he upgraded his death leap, since the ability now has an absurd range of 1,000 meters. Ignoring the frustration of its failed attack, the wild beast locks its red eyes on the invader and prepares for another lethal charge. However, the guy just accumulates an intense light in the palm of his hand and announces he's about to deliver a little surprise to the creature. Surprising the bird mid-flight, a colossal skeleton warrior plummets from the clouds, landing a crushing punch directly on the monster's head. With the absurd weight of the impact, the giant minion smashes the eagle into the ground with violence. Satisfied with the damage, the MC ironically wonders if the creature won't be crushed to death after that. Deciding he's wasted enough time there, he dismisses the dragon, which flies away, and declares that the playtime with the monster is over. Later, in the forests on the city's outskirts, a group of local players surrounds the guy, shouting that they want to find the so-called invader to fight to the death and teach him a lesson. Completely hyped for the hunt, they boast that they'll show the true power of their regiment as soon as they lay eyes on the enemy. Finding all this bravado hilarious, Bai calls the guys shameless trash and decides to let them experience the strength of his little brothers. First, suddenly, enormous bone warriors appear behind the group, sending the players into a panic as they mistake the minions for elite bosses and wonder how there can be so many of them there. Without giving anyone a chance to understand what's happening, one of the undead raises its heavy sword, charging a devastating magic attack. The blade descends, ripping through the wind and striking the adventurers head-on, making the entire group scream in terror and yell for everyone to run from those monsters. Meanwhile, inside the city, gossip spreads like wildfire among civilians and guards trying to figure out the invader's appearance, discussing the rewards and the rumors that he controls giant skeletons. Calmly assessing the situation, a well-dressed gentleman acknowledges the MC's strength for being able to kill high-level players in a single blow. He then orders his subordinates to call all nearby combatants to face the threat together. The old man warns that acting on impulse won't work, and that the plan is to use their numerical advantage. All that matters is that he himself lands the final blow to secure the prize. Back in the forest, the Lord of Shadows watches the horde of players approaching and grumbles that it's about time, complaining that he only waited because his power level prevents him from entering the city. Escorted by his undead guards, he hears one of the enemy leaders shout from a distance, calling the guy a coward and demanding a fair one-on-one duel. Before the challenge is even finished, the frontline players are in total shock, desperately asking if anyone saw how that troop's attack happened. With his hands behind his head and a completely relaxed posture, the Avenger ignores the system notification about the 1% experience penalty for killing a player and mockingly announces that now he's going to play for real with all of them. Exuding a dark, murderous aura, Bai orders his little brothers to play as they wish with the enemy army, guaranteeing he'll leave everyone with just a sliver of health to feel true despair. Terrified by the brutal assault, the defenders descend into absolute panic as the horde of skeletal giants charges, smashing everything in its path. Trying to fight back however they can, some swordsmen shout words of encouragement and deliver useless blows against the monster's impenetrable armor. In response to the offense, one of the undead swings its colossal sword, creating a lethal arc of wind across the field. The impact instantly sweeps away the defensive lines, leaving only cries for help echoing amidst violent explosions. Seeing they survived the massacre with a threat of life, some players draw the stupid conclusion that the summons aren't that strong and tell the rest of the group to keep attacking. The swords clang against the bony bodies, sending sparks flying, but the invaders are left completely bewildered when they realize their weapons can't deal any real damage. Watching the pathetic scene, the MC sighs in boredom as he notices the enemies have started fighting among themselves. He then wonders when the national war will actually start so he can have an exciting massacre. Suddenly, the desperate mood shifts when one of the warriors excitedly points to the forest, announcing that the city guard has finally arrived to save them. A squad of knights in heavy armor charges at full gallop, demanding that the invader cease his attack immediately. Interested in the new challenge, the Lord tilts his head and decides to test for himself if this famous guard is really that strong. With a simple mental command, he launches one of his giant warriors directly at the armored cavalry. Without hesitation, the guard captain brandishes his spear and lands a cutting blow on the undead with full force. Shocked by the result, Bai takes a step back as he sees his summon destroyed in an instant. He admits he underestimated the game's defenders, and that there's no way he can go head-to-head with the local powerhouses with only 4 days of experience. The initial shock gives way to nervousness, as the guy realizes he's drawn too much attention and his position has been completely exposed to the guards. With no way out, the Avenger activates his Gaze of Death, summoning a devastating orb of solar energy that engulfs the entire cavalry. Seeing the colossal damage hit the 10,000 point mark, one of the hidden players is thankful he wasn't the main target of that spell, since his entire health pool was less than 3,000. Observing the fallen guards, the MC loses interest and concludes that their strength doesn't go beyond that. Still, he summons a spatial portal, warning that the place is still too dangerous to be messing around in, and bids them a mocking farewell. Regaining consciousness after the explosion, the guard captain scratches his helmet, completely confused to find the invader has vanished from the map. Far from the commotion, Bai emerges from the teleport, stepping into a destroyed landscape. Looking at the ground, he finds the absurd number of corpses scattered among the abandoned ruins strange. Hiding behind a rock just ahead, an injured explorer mutters in a panic that it's the end of the line for his team now. Confirming the man's despair, the same demon eagle the MC faced earlier descends from the sky, letting out terrifying shrieks. Surprised by the bizarre coincidence, the Lord of Shadows faces the beast and wonders if it was this creature that slaughtered all the players in the area. Before he can understand the situation, the creature focuses on the guy and fires a lethal magic blast. In a quick reflex, the invader dives to the side, narrowly escaping the attack. The monster's energy tears through the wet ground, creating an immense crater and raising a geyser of dirty water. Furious at the target's agile dodge, the eagle beats its monstrous wings, taking flight again to reposition itself. Noticing the map boss's shift in focus, the hidden survivors shout a warning that the black, feathered demon condor has been exposed and tell everyone to go on high alert. Taking advantage of the timely distraction, Bai takes a step back and thanks the meddling adventurers for drawing the monster's fury. Completely surrounded by the giant bird, the team members fall into despair and beg their captain to call for reinforcements immediately before they're all killed. Gripping his sword with trembling hands, the squad leader angrily questions how the creature managed to break free, since the suppression seal was working perfectly. Observing the chaos unfold with a malicious gaze, the MC decides to make things even worse so he can loot the map in peace. He then pulls an item from his inventory, planning to test if his level promotion sphere works on area bosses. As the eagle violently charges the group's defenses, one of the warriors spots the mysterious guy approaching and asks the captain what that invader intends to do in the middle of their fight. Without giving explanations to anyone, Bai points the palm of his hand toward the beast and activates the system's power, focusing the promotion magic directly on the black, feathered condor. A pillar of golden light instantly engulfs the creature, causing a brutal mutation that terrifies the survivors as they realize the monster has just evolved. Staring at the enemy's new, overwhelming aura, the squad captain's eyes widen as he murmurs in shock that the bird has become a legendary, grade boss. Overcome with rage, he deduces that the invader must be to blame for this absurd evolution and orders an urgent call for help, but his comrades lament that it's already too late for any rescue. Now colossal and covered in a menacing dark energy, the demon eagle spreads its wings over the small group of humans, ready to decimate the entire area. With no chance of victory, the leader orders an immediate strategic retreat, admitting that the creature's current power is a nightmare they cannot face. On the very first swooping charge from the legendary boss, a heavy shield is sent flying after failing to withstand the brutal impact of the dark magic. Seeing his defenses crumble like paper, the commander screams desperately for someone to lure the creature away, while they try to activate the distress signal one more time. Satisfied with the carnage he just created, Bai sneakily steps into a spatial portal, laughing to himself as he confirms that the chaos he generated was more than enough to throw everyone off his trail. Noticing the guy's cowardly escape, the swordsman screams the invader's name into the wind, furiously demanding to know who the heck he thinks he is. Far from the massacre, the Lord lands smoothly in a narrow, rocky canyon. Checking the coordinates in the system, he confirms he's arrived at the sacred mountain of the Apocalypse map, exactly where the treasure is supposed to be hidden. Walking calmly through the deserted landscape, he finds the absolute silence of the place strange, commenting that he hasn't encountered a single elite monster guarding the prize. His footsteps echo on the stone until he stops before an intense glow on the ground. A system notification pops up, congratulating the player for finding a high-level, completely unlocked black, gold chest. Staring at the majestic golden box at his feet, the explorer feels a pang of suspicion that it was all too easy. He assesses that finding an item of this rarity just lying around, and without a lock, is a sudden joy too suspicious to be true. Staring at the majestic golden chest at his feet, Bai gets all excited about finding an epic, grade treasure and jokes that this is an opportunist happy moment. But the excitement is short-lived when the system demands 36 spatial crystals to release the lock, leaving the guy indignant that he thought the prize would be completely free. Not quite understanding how this requirement works, he wonders what kind of valuable material this spatial crystal is. Just then, the Lord sends a direct message to the auction house manager, asking about the item and telling her to quickly buy the 36 units while he decides to leave the map. In a more peaceful location, he receives his subordinate's greetings through the interface and quickly asks if she managed to get the requested material. The merchant explains that these stones are high-level universal items used for teleportation and defense matrices, then confirms she has already secured the exact quantity for her boss. With the trade successfully completed, the MC thanks her for her efficiency and takes the opportunity to tell the woman to keep an eye out for Ice or Death series materials during the capital's upcoming auctions. As soon as the manager confirms the new order, the guy summons the lockbox to the ground and commands the immediate unlocking of the treasure. The magic chest consumes the spatial stones and opens with an intense glow, delivering an epic, grade ring of luck directly into the invader's hands. At that moment, A global announcement informs everyone that the legendary boss has been destroyed, granting free teleports to everyone and doubling the reward for the guy's head, which leaves him perplexed by the absolute devastation the bird caused in the city. Far away, in the neighboring kingdom, players discuss a plan to capture the MC by blocking the main entrances but soon get discouraged when they realize they have no chance of overpowering him, having just lost an entire fortress to a beast that was just passing through. While the gossip spreads, the ice dragon soars through the skies of the Valley of Black Bones, carrying its master through the clouds in complete safety. Holding the Scripture of Death, Bai assesses that he has gathered enough soul points in the last battle and deduces that he can open the Dark Book once more. The system then triggers a class advancement quest, requiring him to get as close as possible to his own demise within 3 seconds, leaving the guy outraged by such a dangerous and absurd rule. Despite thinking the requirement is complete madness, the adventurer simply dives headfirst off the dragon's back, plummeting at high speed toward the bottom of the valley and arrogantly guaranteeing he will complete this mission with extreme ease. The violent impact of his own body against the rock instantly zeroes out his health points and shatters the ground, completing the advancement quest on the spot and unlocking the life-sharing ability. The system screen announces that the original ability has been replaced by Dith Recruitment, yielding bonus attribute points for being the first to reach Tier 2, and leaving the Lord completely mesmerized by the increase in strength. Without missing a beat, the Avenger accesses his interface to promote the new skill directly to the special classification of Dith Contract. With the successful upgrade, the recruitment reaches its maximum level and evolves into the Edict of Death, making Bai note the technique basically functions as a powerful clone, and that he needs to make good use of this advantage. As he absorbs the information from the system, he looks up, surprised to see a cold light begin to shine at the top of the canyon. The skeletal beast breaks through the level 30 barrier and officially enters its juvenile stage, beating its pointed wings and letting out an intimidating roar as it displays its new, menacing form. Observing the formidable size of his battle partner, the MC excitedly comments that things are getting really interesting now. Leaping directly onto his mount's back, he orders it to fly off to hunt that demon bird from before, planning to turn the Apocalypse Kingdom into the official stage for his immortal legion. Flying over the outskirts of a large castle protected by walls and rivers, the Lord scans the landscape and deduces that the bird must have hidden itself very well in there to escape everyone's radar. Down below, an immense army is organizing in the castle's stone courtyard, catching the guy's attention as he instantly realizes the crowd seems to be plotting an ambush. Finding the scene perfect for a warm-up, he asks the dragon if it wants to cause an absolute disaster and tells the beast to fly down so they can play with the castle's defenses a bit. On the ground, the Knight Commander hurries his troops to focus on leveling up, sternly warning that if the famous White Knight appears, their only option will be to cowardly retreat behind the walls. Hearing the warning, one of the swordsmen questions the enemy's true strength, finding it utterly absurd that they have to retreat when they have a battalion of thousands perfectly capable of capturing a single, isolated target. But the army's bravado turns to absolute terror when the colossal head of the ice dragon plummets from the clouds, ripping through the wind right above the squad, making the warriors scream in desperation. Wanting to know what kind of monster it is, the beast lands violently, scattering stone blocks and dust everywhere, while the burly warrior flees for his life, screaming in shock that the Lord of Shadows has finally arrived to kill them. Far from all the chaos and confusion, Bai calmly steps through a spatial portal, arriving in the desolate valley of black mist near the city of Xiaosha. Fully focused on expanding his power, he declares he will use this gloomy environment as the debut stage for his new legion and raises his hands, unleashing spells of annihilation into the air. With his troops taking form in the canyon, the MC dismisses the ice dragon, ordering the beast to go explore the region and have fun hunting on its own. Walking through the rugged terrain with his giant warriors in the rearguard, the guy complains about the lack of strong enemies and grumbles that the map is terrible for someone who needs to farm experience. Suddenly, responding to the invaders' complaints, a monstrous wolf wreathed in a purplish aura leaps from the rocks, growling fiercely at the group. Unintimidated by the animal's ambush, the Avenger just observes the creature and asks with boredom if this is a beginner's area since it only offers level 1 monsters. The bone minions spin their swords and slice the wolves instantly, generating colossal damage numbers. While an adventurer hiding among the rocks is shocked to see a beast full of health and brutal attack power obliterated in the blink of an eye. Ignoring the presence of the frightened spectator, the Lord accumulates an intense, shimmering energy in the palm of his hand, mockingly announcing that it's time to test his new ability in practice. In a spectacular magical explosion, a cerulean light rips through the dusty ground, summoning the implacable figure of the headless horseman mounted on a phantom steed wreathed in living flames.